what do you call that? It's a technical break for changing over the stream. Very good. I think we're ready to go, folks. Good morning. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. My name is Bruce Mullock. Panel members today are Lisa Valentini, Larry Clay, and Erin Chang. This will be a virtual public hearing. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event platform that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by computer, a phone or tablet, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When his or her item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Registered participants will be participating by audio only. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called upon to speak. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property in order to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on a particular application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because Committee of Adjustment and TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email only. You may not agree with the decision of the committee. Decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. Procedure. I will call each item in the order that it is listed on the agenda. When an application is uncontested, the applicant or agent will proceed with their presentation if requested by the committee. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the agent or applicant, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment to you when you are approaching the time limit. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name. please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and may be asked to make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note, the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then individuals, either in support of or opposed to the application, will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after the speaker has finished their presentation. When all the speakers have presented, the applicant or agent will have an opportunity to rebut, but only to those issues that were raised by the speakers. And that will mark the end of the discussion. At that point, the application will be taken into committee for a decision. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have the minutes of the last meeting been confirmed by members?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and panel members. There are no minutes for today.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest by either panel or staff members with respect to this morning's agenda? Seeing none, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have you received any requests for deferral?
Mr. Chair, there is one item for deferral, item number 9. It's 339 Windermere Avenue. There was improper notification.
And that, was that on the part of the city? The city did improper notification?
There was an error on the location map, and so new notices have to go out.
Okay, all right. So that deferral request is being put forward by the applicant or by staff internally?
By the city staff.
By the city
yes.
staff. Let's deal with that deferral request first then, and move on to the agenda. Panel members, number 9, as you've had explained, there are 1 or 2 errors on this application originating from city staff, so staff are requesting a deferral on that one in order to correct those errors for proper consideration. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, do we have an agent on this, or I'm assuming the agent's, I don't know if there's an agent waiting on to speak to it or not.
We'll ask the moderator.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we have the agent here on the line. If you'd like, I can go ahead and unmute them.
If you would unmute the agent, please.
Sure. Angus Skeen, you've been unmuted.
Hi, I'm Angus Skeen. I am the agent for the application. So all of this is familiar to me, and this is fine. It just has to happen, I guess.
Thank you very much, agent. Okay. So thank you, Ms. Valentini. Very important. Yes, the agent is aware of the situation, appears to be in agreement with the idea of a deferral. Any other comments by panel?
Mr. Chair, it's clear deferral is required for proper notice, so I'd like to bring a motion forward for deferral of the application.
Okay,
Sorry,
Liz?
Mr. Chair, there are some people here in interest. I'm not sure if it warrants
Thank you very much.
letting them know. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Good point again. Moderator, let's just check with.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we actually have 4 people registered to speak this item, 3 of which we have here today, and 1 of which we've emailed and haven't been able to get a hold of. So the first person is, would you like me to
Unmute the first speaker,
First
please.
speaker is Amy Cook. Amy, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Good morning.
Amy, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Good morning, speaker. you state your name, please?
Amy Cook, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hi, I'm Amy Cook. I'm a resident of the neighborhood.
Good morning, Amy.
And I was attending just to contest one of the variances proposed.
Okay. Amy, what we've learned this morning at the hearing is that there are a couple of errors on the actual application which originated on the part of city staff. So, in order to deal with the application properly, staff are asking that we defer the application in order to allow time for those errors to be corrected. How would you feel about a deferral of the application for that reason?
I'm fine for a deferral.
Thank you very much. Okay. We're going to go on now to the next registered speaker, please.
Mr. Chair, the next registered speaker was Jennifer David and Hans Engel. They didn't appear to be on the attendee list. We had called and they were here. It looks like they've left. So the next registered speaker is Veronica Wynn. And Veronica, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Good morning, Veronica.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
That's great. My name is Veronica Wynn, and I'm the president of the Swansea Area Repairs Association. I do support this deferral, but could I request that it also be subject to that the owner or the applicant would consult with the community, you know, to maybe arrange a notification or
Okay,
you know, to discuss the issues that they have and make arrangements, make adjustments, or just to we could facilitate such a consultation.
Okay, Veronica, at this moment, we're just dealing with the request to defer. So
Right.
what you're suggesting, what you're suggesting is we'll hope that the agent hears that, but right now I just want to deal with this important matter of whether or not to defer or
Okay.
proceed. So,
Yeah.
so thank you. Basically, you don't oppose a deferral. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. And moderator, do we have any further speakers on
Mr.
standby?
Chair, yeah, we just have one last speaker. That's Murat Dogan. Murat, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Yes, sorry guys for being late.
You're right on time as far as
I
we're
understand you
concerned.
guys are talking about. Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I understand you guys are talking about a deferral, which I believe helps my case as well, because I haven't had much time to examine the proposal, the plans. But what I noticed right off the bat is there is a compound slope in the back where the parking lot
Just a
is supposed to be.
Just a moment, please. Is this an error in the application that you see? Or is this a matter of concern to you? In other words, is it a factual?
It's a matter of concern to me. I see a compound slope that's going north and east, which is creating a potential water trap.
Okay.
Especially after the removal of the green space. So I would like to know how the water is supposed to be drained from there when there's a rainstorm.
Okay, just a moment, please. Okay, now, what the committee is dealing with at the present moment is quite precise. We're wondering whether you would oppose or agree with a deferral of this application. The staff know
Definitely
that
not. I'm not opposing it.
there are a couple of errors in the actual materials that need to be corrected to properly deal with it. But would you be okay with a deferral of the application?
I'm okay with the deferral, yes.
Thank you
Sorry,
very
I
much.
missed the
Okay.
first part. Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
okay. That's what we're dealing with at this stage, and that alone. Okay, then. I take it there are no further speakers on standby.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that's it for item
Okay.
9.
Okay, panel members, there you've heard from the applicant and the speakers on standby that I think they were unanimous in saying they do not oppose a deferral in order to correct the errors. So I'll look to panel for a motion with respect to the deferral request, please. Ms. Valentini.
Mr. Chair, obviously a deferral is required in this case, so I'd like to bring a motion forward for deferral to allow for proper notification, and you know, it's always the hope that when matters are deferred, that the applicant can speak to neighbors as well. So the motion's for deferral, Mr. Chair.
Seconded by Mr. Clay. So we have a motion to defer, seconded. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Motion is carried and the application is deferred. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to item number 1 on today's morning agenda. This is 176 Indian Grove, and on this application, the committee has before it the following communications. Material submitted by the applicant, a previous Committee of Adjustment decision from 2018. There's an order to comply, which affects the property from 2019, and email correspondence from the agent regarding that order to comply. There is correspondence both in support of and opposed to the application. 3 form letters in support from owners or occupants of 163, 174, 175 Indian Grove. And in opposition, we have correspondence from 197, 181, 180, 180, 191, 191, 55 Mahar Avenue, 168 Indian Grove, and 211 Indian Grove. Okay. Now, moderator, on this application, we have a number of registered speakers standing by.
Yep, Mr. Chair, the agent, Bruno Lopez, is on the line. Bruno, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Very good. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Bruno Lopez from MXL Engineering on behalf of the owner.
Thank you very much. Okay, then. You'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation to the panel with respect to the application. Please proceed now.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, this is an application that apparently it's being done in the past. So it's a process that it's actually been for a few years already, like probably 4 or 5 years. So I'm the new designer, I would say, since a couple of years ago. This was after the first committee hearing. So when I took over the project, I actually found there was sort of a clerical mistake on the decision of the committee, of the previous committee. I think there was an honest mistake, and to be honest, I don't know if this was the previous designer or if it was the zoning review. So what happens, and if you look at the application before you, none of the envelope has changed. However, the area was miscalculated. So what previous committee actually approved in the past was 0.97, and we actually seeking 0.99. So there is a 2% difference, but this 2%, to be so committee is aware, there is no change on the drawings whatsoever in terms of area. So somehow down the line, somebody did a miscalculation, and that's the reason why we have this variance. So the second variance, it's because the owner decided to do a second unit, and because of the second unit, we cannot do any change to the front. And of course, we are doing some changes to the front, and that's where the second variance kick in. We are fully aware of the letters of opposition, and what we take from the letters of opposition, most of it is it's a statement that this new front facade doesn't actually fit the character of the neighborhood. So I somehow disagree because if you take a look at the drawings, particularly at drawing A0701 that you have right now on the screen, we have about 2/3 of that front dormer pretty much as a front face. So if we go along the neighborhood, there are plenty of third floor dormers. They are not exactly squared or rectangle like the one we're proposing, but if you notice, we're gonna have the existing roof to remain. So there is a front gable by the second floor that we're gonna leave the same, and part of the third floor roof we're gonna leave it the same. So when we have these letters against the project that's stating that it doesn't fit the neighborhood, to my view, it actually fits the neighborhood, and we are trying to leave as much as possible of the existing character. So in a nutshell, again, there were two minor variances that they are really, really minor. One was the clerical mistake that we're trying to correct. And the second one is because we are touching the front and we are applying for a second unit. It's one of the bylaws that that actually was noted as well as a variance. So in a nutshell, that's about it.
Thank you very much.
And so sorry, just to complement, and so the committee, I believe, is aware, is that this application, again, everything is as it was a few years ago when the committee first actually approved it. So there is no basic changes. It's just this front dormer that is slightly different, and apparently, and we try to the best of our ability to keep it in take with the neighborhood. But of course, there are neighbors that they don't want to see any change at all, which it's very unfair.
Thank you. Panel members, will open this up to questions by, well, or Ms. Valentini, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Happy to wait, but I'll go ahead with my question. So, Mr. Lopez, was there a dormer on the front the original application? There was not, is my understanding. Is that correct? I mean, I don't have the benefit of the plans, but.
Yes, it's correct. There was no dormer. So committee understand, and Ms. Lisa, the way the design was at the very beginning, there was supposed to be, yes, a slanted roof and probably skylights. So we took the opportunity because, again, skylights are not the most beautiful thing, and they leak and there are problems. Me as an engineer, as a designer, I try to run away from skylights. So I proposed the owner, there are 2 bedrooms up there, so why not take the skylights and take the opportunity to do a front face, just extend the front of the house, well, because nothing will change with the area. So the area inside was already being used, but usually what you do under slanted roofs, you tend to do closets or so. So what I propose to the owners, listen, if you just erect this wall, and we are not touching FSI or GFA, we try to minimize the impact, because I know and I'm cognizant about how much grief a little bit of a change can cause on the neighborhood, especially on neighbors that they live there for 30, 40 years. They are not open to any change, and we try to minimize it. But you're absolutely correct. On the very first approved plans, there was no dormer with this front face.
Thank you very much.
The roof line matched the what's currently at the attached neighbors then.
Correct, absolutely.
Thank you.
Everything is to be in keep with the next door neighbor. Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the first speaker, then moderator.
Mr. Chair, the first speaker is Stephanie Dantas. Doesn't look like they're here. We've called and emailed them, but they're still not with us. So the next registered speaker is James Whitaker. James, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Yes, I hope you can hear me. I've lived on the street for about 40 years, so I resent
James?
the implication, because I've lived here a long time, that I'm against any changes. There have been a lot of changes on the street, but we do want to make sure that any changes in the street are in keeping with the architectural design. And the main problem, of course, with the design is that, well, there are 2, built without permission, which is one one thing, which is a violation too, and it's ugly. It does not fit the street, and it certainly does not match the house next door, which has a slanted roof. This is a square dormer. It juts out and architecturally is an eyesore. We have no objections to what the owner has been doing at the back, or putting the floors, doing the underpinning, but the owner is in the business. He is a contractor and does the underpinning, so he knows what should have been required. So really it does not fit the tone of the street, and that's my objection to the changes here. So as long as that square dormer is taken down and the roof line matches 174 Indian Grove, there isn't a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for James, panel members? So James, I do have a quick question. So the dormer that I'm seeing there in this this front elevation, that dormer is fully built. It exists as we see it in that drawing.
It is fully built. It is it is an eyesore. It's a gray, but it shouldn't have been built. They used the opportunity. They had plans, and they used the opportunity to stick it up there, hoping that the neighborhood wouldn't object. But everybody I've talked to on the street finds this is an eyesore and not keeping, and so worried about slippery slope. Someone gets away with this one time, then up and down the street, because we are close to the subway, and so I think there's a lot of interest in any sort of development in the area, and we're trying to maintain this as a street that has a nice look to it.
Thank you very much. Okay, moderator. Next speaker, please.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is James Roche, and I believe we have James as call-in user.
Yes, I'm here.
James, as you join us, please state your name.
My name is James Roche. I live at 180 Indian Grove.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
We do hear you, and you have 5 minutes to address your concerns about the impact of this application.
Thank you. The first comment I'd like to make is regarding the agent's comment about neighbors not being open to change. That, in my experience, and I've lived here for 30 years, is absolutely untrue. There has been only a small number of objections to developments and renovations in this area. And for example, in the case of 174, the neighboring property to this, there were substantial objections, but there were substantial discussions with the owner and developer of that property. And those discussions resulted in a number of compromises which are known to the owner of this particular property. So he was very, very well aware of neighborhood concerns about the dormer he was building. And there is a general belief in the neighborhood. That's why he went ahead with his 2018 plans, which showed no dormer and perfectly matched 174. Nobody in the community objected to those plans because they were in line, and they were approved by the committee. However, at some point he decided to proceed with the dormer construction, and not alone is that dormer construction completely different from any other third floor dormer in the neighborhood. It's the only front wall extension type dormer. All other dormers were part of the original roof lines and tend to be small windows in the roof rather than an actual front wall dormer. So that is my primary concern. Secondary to that is the sort of disrespect that the owner, applicant, general contractor has shown not just from the Committee of Adjustment, both to the city's building department and inspectors and to the community around him. As I say, he was very well aware of the community's view about keeping the roof lines sympathetic to all the neighboring properties, and he just went ahead and built without permission and without approval, and is now looking for forgiveness. And I think that disrespect he's shown to the process is the same disrespect as he's showing to his neighbors. It's almost like he decided that he would go ahead and then he'd beg for forgiveness afterwards in the hope that people wouldn't ask him to take things down. But this dormer is a blight on our neighborhood, as the previous speaker said, and again we're worried that it will completely destroy the neighborhood. With regard to the extension at the rear and the additional area back there, I don't think anybody has any problems, in the same way as nobody had any problems with that at 174 Indian Grove. And I think that's all I have to say on the matter. I'm just concerned that this has been represented as an administrative calculation error, but really it's just trying to make these changes by the back door. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just stand by for a moment. We'll see if the panel has any questions for you. I just want to ask the staff, could you put that drawing back up, please, that shows the plan, the front elevation that was approved by committee? I've seen the photograph of what was built. I'd also like to see what was approved by committee. Panel members, any questions for Mr. Roche? Okay. Hearing none, we shall move now to the next registered speaker. Moderator.
Mr. Chair, next registered speaker is Mary Bracken. I believe we have Mary as call-in user 3. Mary, are you there?
Yes, I am, yes. Good morning, Chair, members of the committee and staff. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about this application. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Please state your name.
My name is Moira Bracken, and I live at 180 Indian Grove. So
Thank
I'm
you.
2 doors north of the applicant.
2 doors north. Good morning to
Now,
you.
I've already... Thank you very much, and good morning to you too. It's a beautiful morning out there. You will have already seen my written submission opposing this application, and I'm not going to go into great detail again because you've probably read so much over the past few days. But I would like to draw your attention that to many of our neighbours, and myself included, our main issue, again, is with the change to the front wall and roof of the property. The dormer, we believe, does not respect or fit the character of the neighbourhood, and therefore is not in keeping with the official plan and is not appropriate or desirable for our neighbourhood. I would also, again, like to draw attention to the agent. I think his comment was unfair and uncalled for. I've been living here a number of years, and I have no issue with change, but I think it needs to be appropriate and in line with city planning and city permits. If this project, the original project, had followed the COA approvals, I would not be spending my morning here objecting today. The reality is that the applicant misrepresented his plans to community when he first applied for variance in 2018. When he told members of the community he was applying for the variance, there were no objections because he said he would build exactly as it was next door. He was aware the community widely opposed the dormer-style roof for this and the neighbouring properties, but he decided to go ahead and build it regardless. As a point of interest, there were 2 letters to comply to the neighbour. One was because he had no permits in 2019. The second one was because he was building the dormer without permission, without a permit. I just want that on record, I could please. He ignored the city inspectors, he ignored the orders to comply, and he finished the dormer roof. As such, he's shown total disregard for the community members, his neighbours, for this committee, and for the city permit rules and staff. He now appears to be trying to represent this as a mistake and is looking for approval after the fact. I find that very odd in someone who's been in the building industry for 31 years, I believe he claims, and I can't understand how this could happen. Now, work on this property has been going on since 2018, and we have all become really tired with the inconvenience, the dirt, the construction, and the lack of parking in the street. So I know some of the closer neighbours may feel, let's get this finished. but they're not happy with what has been happening on the street. I would draw your attention to some of the other letters of rejection that were also filed against the application, and you can draw your own conclusions about the behaviour with regard to permits or other projects he has worked in. I am not objecting to the project as a whole. I am objecting to the roof and front, and I would ask that you restore to the prevailing neighbourhood style and to original application. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me today.
Thank you very much. Panel members, any questions for this speaker? Thank you. Moderator.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Matthew Cavanaugh, but despite calling and emailing, it doesn't look like they're here. So that's it that we have for this item.
So, and could we think back to the first speaker, Stephanie Dantas? Have we had any opportunity? Has Stephanie come online yet?
No, Mr. Chair, it doesn't look like she has.
Okay. So we have then heard from all the registered speakers who are standing by.
That's correct, yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, thank you. And thank you to those speakers. For the information and clarity of everyone on this application, I want to mention something that is important, we all understand. That is that the Committee of Adjustment has a clearly defined job to do and is appointed for that clearly defined job. We consider minor variance requests, and we also consider requests to sever lots, to create new lots. So the Committee of Adjustment is not mandated with any punitive powers. In a situation in which we are being asked to, in fact, legalize something that has already been built, or something that was built not as approved, then what the committee is asked to do is to look at that application as if it had not been built, and to apply the 4 tests to the situation, and to make our decision on that basis. So that's the mandate of the committee, and those are the limitations within which we are operating. Okay, so we'll now go back to the agent for rebuttal on the issues raised by the speakers. The issues I heard recur in those speakers were, first of all, in every case, concern about the dormer, its appearance, the fact that it doesn't appear to fit with the other half of the semi, and concern that it actually has an effect on the streetscape. I also heard, echoing each time, this issue of what a lack of respect for city process and consultation with neighbors. So those are the things I'll ask you to comment on. Agent, please, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair. So rebutting a couple comments, the first one that I'd like to brought over is that apparently all of the neighbors, they clearly stated that they're not opposing change, but deep in their hearts, that's literally what they are opposing to, is any change happening on the neighborhood. In terms of what is being built, I take a bit of this blame myself, because when I was the one proposing these drawings, we had these drawings and we submitted for zoning review. There was some miscommunication, because again, I take a bit of the blame on this one, that we had variances, but when I sent the drawings to the owner and saying that this is what we sent to zoning review, he actually gave these drawings to the carpenters. And it was assumed that this was approved. So this was an internal miscommunication. It's not bad faith, it was just miscommunication. So again, and that's why we are here. It's just to get this approved. And if we talk about the 4 tests, I would like to get a better insight if someone can tell me why this doesn't pass the 4 test, because again, neighbors saying that it's an eyesore. We
Excuse
see
me.
all these. Sorry.
It's up to you to convince us why it does pass the 4 tests. It's not for us to tell you why it does not, in particular at this stage. Tell us why it does pass the 4 tests.
Yeah, no, correct, absolutely. But in this sense, I was saying that because the neighbors are stating that this doesn't pass the 4 test, I would like them to prove me wrong. So on my end, I can say that yes, I don't see anything out of character. We try to minimize the impact. We leave the existing roof 1/3 of it as it was, or even more, because in front of the dormer you have the slanted roof. To the side of the dormer you have the slanted roof. We have the peak in between 2 neighbors. And so you're aware that the next door neighbor, the one adjacent with the demising wall, he actually is in support of the application. So if there was someone who stating that would be really bugged about it, that will be really upset about the situation, would be the next door neighbor, but he's actually in support. So another neighbor that is in support is the one just across the street. So if this would be the eyesore, this would be the eyesore for the people that live beside and in front. What I would like to bring to the committee, I understand that neighbors, they live in the community, they go up and down the street, but the ones directly across and beside, they're actually in support. So again, there was a miscommunication. It's not bad faith that we're trying to do something wrong. The owner is a contractor, yes, he is. But this is his own house. So he's in the business, and someone mentioned about underpinning. Yes, there is underpinning that was approved, and this is for the rear walkout, so there is some underpinning being done. But other than that, I don't see anything that will create a big eyesore like some neighbors state. It's like we try to keep the roof line, we try to minimize the area. Again, we try to do everything within conformance and according to the Planning Act. Again, I don't see anything that will say that there is a clear clause, a clear cut that say that this is not, that doesn't suit, doesn't fit, or violates any kind of norm.
Thank you very much. Let's open this discussion now to the panel. Panel questions of the applicant, Mr. Clay.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think we've heard a lot from the neighbors, and the concern is about process. And as Lisa pointed out, this dormer wasn't identified in the original application that was approved by this committee. There have now been 2 orders to comply. One of them relate to the construction of a dormer, which wasn't on the original plan. So I think we can all understand why the neighborhood is concerned. Had that dormer been on the original plans, it's quite possible that there may have been a different reaction and a different type of input from the neighbor. So I know you've kind of talked a little bit about it, but I want to go back to the orders to comply. I want to go back to the rationale for constructing a dormer without permission and in a manner that was inconsistent with what was approved. So maybe you can just enlighten us a little bit about what happened and that dormer came into construction.
Yes, so again, as I stated, when I got into this project about 3 years ago, and after that first committee decision, we start to work actually on our alternative. And that's when we submitted for zoning, we start the zoning process, and here we are today. And in the meantime, construction was going on with the original permit. But when they got to the roof, that's when the mistake happened and there was miscommunication. And it was assumed that this dormer was already approved. It was not. And when I got the letter from the inspector, I actually talked with the inspector myself. I know it personally. The situation was that yes, there was complaint because some neighbors, they noticed that this was not on the original drawings. There was a miscommunication, and they stopped. So if you see where they stopped, actually the the city inspector was a very nice, friendly person that he even allowed to finish the roof. So because the construction now, it's an open ceiling, open everything, and he even allowed to finish the roof and say, stop it where you are and continue with the process. And that's why we get this notice to comply. So the notice to comply was during the process, and while we were permitted for the construction on the 3rd floor, we are not permitted for this dormer. But I had it on the drawings, and we were starting the process to get this dormer approved, and that's why we are here today.
Thank you very much. Ms. Valentini.
This isn't like about the process of the construction, but it's more about the size of the dormer and the impact in terms of its additional massing. So 2 questions arise. Without the dormer, do you still need the FSI increase for the variance? That's the first question.
Again, we just need to correct the existing typo, that instead of 0.97 would be actually 0.99, because nothing changed. Nothing
Okay,
changed.
so I understand nothing changed in terms of the footprint of the building. Does the dormer add extra FSI? Often it does, but maybe not in this case. I don't know.
No, it doesn't.
Okay,
No,
thank
it
you.
doesn't.
Second question is in terms of the size of the dormer. When I sort of had a scope of things, it looked to me like this is sort of maybe not in keeping or a bit out of character. I don't see other dormers. There are 3rd floor dormers, but none that have the same type of size, massing, flat roof as this one. Is there any other? Is there examples you can show that can convince me that this is in character with what is already existing on the street? Because I didn't see that.
I guess number 172. 172 Indian Road, Indian Grove has something similar. Might not be the same mass. The reason why we have this specific, if you go to drawing A0501, if we can have it on the screen, A0501, the reason why we have the dormer to this length is we can fit the 2 windows, because the original project has pretty much the same as the next door neighbor, 2 skylights. So in order for me to actually give light to the 2nd bedroom, we have to have a window, and that's the only reason why the dormer extends to the inner side. Let's say the party wall
Agent?
side extends a bit.
Agent, I'll just ask you to hold on for a moment. So we can couple your comments with the related, I believe it's an elevation. So just while staff catch up with you when we get to that, is this the drawing you're talking about?
Yes, it is. That is correct.
Pardon me, I thought it was an
if-
elevation. Go ahead.
No, it's the floor plan. No, correct. That's the floor plan. So we understand why the dormer has the size it has on the front. So if you see the 2 bedrooms, the one to the exterior of the house, so we choose to keep the dormer to pretty much to the facade, to the end of the house. On the inside, towards the demising wall, we left a slanted roof in there, and we took it to the maximum as possible, so we could fit a window on that 2nd bedroom. And again, coming to the second question, if we look at 172 Indian Grove, we have something similar, not exactly, but it's something similar. So it's like literally 2 doors down.
The property you're talking about, but it seems to have less of an impact or massing since it has a sloped roof. Is that the one you're talking about? That has
Yes, correct. Yes,
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
And if you go down that street, or let's say down that side, you will see that there are a few dormers. So, but the scenario, yes, you're absolutely correct. It's not just a one, let's say a one together, but there are plenty of examples where they have 2 small dormers on the roof. So again, having the two small dormers or have one together, at the end of the day, the mass, the area is there. But is it exact same as the neighbor? No, because the neighbors, these houses will build probably on the 40s or so, and we are now in 2021. So again, we try to do something that resembles, not exactly the same. Could I have done something similar? Possibly, yes. But again, it's just to give a little bit of a personal touch, a different thing, because if we just do everything like we did 80 years ago, there is no evolution, right? So that's what architectural is about, is to keep in like, but you add something modern as well.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Mr. Cheng, question for the applicant. Go ahead.
And you're on mute, Aaron. You're muted.
All right, I'll repeat that again.
Please begin again.
Right. So I would like to see the drawing that you show the height of the top floor where you are showing the dome. I want to see the vertical clearance from the ceiling joists to the floor. That's 2.7, right?
Correct.
So I just want to let you know that because somehow I'm an architect and I'm quite familiar with how to calculate GFA, and I just verified it with the Toronto zoning bylaw. Anything more than 1.4 meters are considered as GFA. So when you mention about the errors that you made, that might be one, but I have to include this attic for the dormer into the GFA calculation, which means it will affect item number 1. Item number 1 and the concern of the neighbor about the shape or the size of the dormer as a direct relationship. And just in case if you call this a third floor, that will be even worse. The floor definition of the GFA is anything vertical clearance of more than 2 meters. So either way you call it a third floor, an attic, whatever you are contributing inside of this dormer, as long as it is higher than 1.4 meters, it is a direct contribution to variance number 1.
Thank you.
So we have to look at it in this direction. That's how I'm looking at it. So I would say I'll give you one last chance, rather than explain to us the error of the calculation, because I wouldn't consider that. I'm looking directly at the definition of the zoning bylaw. Why would you shape it like that? And why would we have to approve it? Because that GFA has direct relationship with the attic.
Applicant?
Yes, you are correct about your statements about every time that you have it above 1.2 meters you consider. But again, this area under the slanted roof was already considered all livable area. So this area was already as livable area. So even if we leave the roof, let's hypothetically that we bring the roof as original, the area inside is our.
I'll be very honest. What I'm thinking is the when you talk about the four tests, it has to do with the harmony and the neighborhood. You have to be a good neighbor. These all are factors that we have to consider. And you have quite a number of neighbors coming out and said that dorm, and I actually looked at it myself too. I don't want to judge it by good design or bad design. I'm not in a position of that. I'm just looking at the reaction from the neighbor, and because of their position,
okay.
I have to look at.
We'll give the applicant one final chance to respond to this before we take the application into committee. Applicant, final thought, please.
Okay, so again, coming back to even previous question, which goes along with this, is that if we would go with 2 separate dormers, individual, like again, along that street we have multiple examples, most probably nobody would be against. This is just because we decide to actually combine, let's say, 2 dormers in one, and maybe this is why the neighborhood is a little bit, I would say, in disagreement. Again, architectural wise and construction wise, maintenance wise, and everything wise, I would rather prefer to have this dormer as it is. Again, we see it in multiple places in the city, probably not exactly like this on this particular neighborhood. That is nothing similar, but I have a strong feeling that this being approved, the neighborhood will develop most of these 3rd floor dormers into this style, because again, it's more convenient for construction, it's more convenient for everything else like maintenance, and again, if we have two little dormers, we have snow piling up in the middle. It's infiltration. It's all these other scenarios that I was trying to avoid. Again, combining these.
Okay.
And again, I think some of the neighbors that they are complaining, again, it's neighbors that they live in the neighborhood, but they are not exactly.
Agent, yeah, we've already heard that comment. Okay, at this stage, the committee will take the application into committee for discussion, moving toward a motion. So let's have some discussion with respect to this application now that we are in committee. And who'd like to go first? Ms. Valentini, please.
Mr. Chair, notwithstanding the process and how this got here, when I looked at the application, I did have concerns about the dormer, to be honest. If this was on the original application, I would have had concerns. I understand Mr. Lopez saying there are 2 dormers on some roofs, but those, in my view, when I looked at the street, were semis, 1 dormer on each side. I feel this is a lot of massing, in my view, to have a dormer of this size on this street. And I'm not in support of the application because of the dormer. So, and the size of it and its location, I feel it adds to the massing. And I don't frankly think it's in character with what's existing on the street. So that's just my view. I can't support it.
Thank you. Mr. Clay? Mr. Clay?
Yeah, I'll just weigh in. I agree very much with Lisa on the massing. I'm equally concerned. I mean, let's not forget that variance number 2 is also related to the dormer. It's not the GFI or the FSI. It's the changes to the front facade, and those were included in the original application. I think we need to also make it abundantly clear in these situations where I frankly find it difficult to believe that there was communication. I think this is a contractor who's been in business for many years, knows what they're doing, and I'd be very surprised if there was a error in communication that led to the construction of a dormer over several days. I think this was an attempt to build something around the rules, and now coming back to seek relief from those rules. And this is the kind of thing that we should, as a committee, make a point in a thing. And I am very much concerned about the process in this situation where some construction was undertaken without the appropriate permits and without the appropriate permission, and quite frankly, has not surprisingly got the neighborhood up in arms. And for those reasons, I will not be supporting this application either.
Thank you. Mr. Chang?
Completely agree with my 2 other colleagues, and I was hoping to understand better, is there any reason to have that dormer rather than easy to construct or increasing the GFA, and I couldn't hear any other reason that for the benefit of the neighbors or any restriction due to the site condition. So for that reason, because of the dormer, I can't approve number 1 and so on the whole case.
Thank you very much. For my part, I'm thinking back now to how I would have approached this application. Let's assume it wasn't built. It hasn't been built yet. I'm looking at this application, and I look at that dormer. My feeling would have been that it was not desirable, not minor, and that it was a problem on a semi-detached house, and I would not have voted for it had it not been, even if it was still in the proposal stage. So, the purpose of this application, part of it is to legalize front main wall alterations. I'm not prepared to do that with my vote, so that having been said, I will look to panel for a motion, please. Ms. Valentini?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to bring a motion forward for refusal for the reasons I had previously stated. It doesn't meet the 4 tests in my view.
Motion to refuse, seconded by Mr. Clay. There's a motion before the panel now, seconded. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And the vote is unanimous to to carry the motion and refuse the application. Thank you very much. And the panel moves along now to item number 2, 240 Chatsworth Avenue. On 240 Chatsworth Avenue. The committee has before us materials submitted by the agent.
There's an Ashworth, or it's Ashworth, Chair.
I beg your pardon? 240 Ashworth Avenue. I appreciate that, thank you. And forgive me. 240 Ashworth Avenue. And beyond the materials submitted by the applicant, we have a staff report from Engineering and Construction Services. Moderator, is the applicant with us?
Mr. Chair, Deborah Mesher is the registered agent, and Deborah's been unmuted.
And do we have
Yes,
two?
I'm here. I'm Deborah Mesher.
Good morning, Deborah. Just hang on for a moment, please. Moderator, do we have two speakers registered standing by?
We do, yes, Mr. Chair.
Speaking in interest, okay. All right then. So there are two speakers standing by. So Deborah, good morning to you. You have 5 minutes to present your application to the committee. Go ahead now, please.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. So my name is Deborah Mesher. I'm the designer and applicant for this application, which involves a 2-story rear laneway suite on Ashworth Avenue, which is Christie Davenport neighborhood. So the main concepts of this application are to reuse an existing garage, a double garage, on a corner laneway suite. So there are 4 or 5 of the 8 variances that relate to just that, being able to reuse the existing structure. It's a solid concrete block structure, solid wood deck that can be reused. So this is a matter of putting on a second floor onto this. So some of the variances that that were caused by that are height, the rear and side setback, some minor landscaping. But if I can kind of jump ahead to the important ones, I think the important one is mainly the proposed 2nd-story deck that is also acting as a carport for an exterior parking space as part of this suite. The suite is intended for an elderly couple. It's the homeowner's elderly parents who are looking to move back into the city and under the kind of wing of their son. So this 2nd-story deck does a couple of things. It is covered parking for ice-free for the intended residents, and it also provides an amenity space on the 2nd floor that is kind of private to them, leaving the backyard as a private space for the homeowner. So during the process, community planning got in touch about, in particular, 2 things: the height of the suite, and this kind of carport deck. So I worked, made lots of changes in collaboration with the community planner to get them on side. So the height has stayed the same, and mainly it's because it's the peak of the roof itself is 6.9 meters, whereas the 2 eaves actually fall under the maximum 6-meter limit. So really, from the laneways, from the backyards, it's, the massing is a little bit smaller. It's just the peak of the roof that kind of pops up above that 6 meters. So the exterior deck that's in the kind of backyard between the 2 spaces was also reduced both in kind of its depth to kind of fall within the laneway suite kind of intended bylaw bubble of having at least a 5-meter separation from the main house. So there's that. The deck, the usable deck space itself was reduced down to 11 meters from 13 that we had earlier. And by request of the community planner was actually to remove, and one of the variances is to remove the 1.5 meter screening that is on that deck, to the neighbor. What was on their suggestion to actually reduce it to 1.07 meters and kind of move it in to kind of decrease the massing of that. So to not have like a big fence where it would be read as a big massing, but to pull it in, add more landscaping up there. So we came to an agreement about what fit within this bylaw, what worked with all the requirements that we were looking for to get out of this building. So that's what I would call your attention to. The second thing I just want to also reiterate is this is a corner laneway property. This is a kind of a more rare situation where there is two sides of this thing. So yes, we have setbacks from either side because of the existing garage condition, but they're all flanked by garages, and there's a lot of extra space here. So this is a great laneway suite to have windows on three sides and to have this deck where the only overlook is onto the laneway itself, onto the backyard that it's a part of, and not even to that east neighborhood because of the setback and the kind of screening and the landscaping that we're proposing on this kind of carport / deck. So yeah, that's it for my presentation for now.
Thank you very much. We'll move on now to the speakers standing by in interest. Moderator?
Mr. Chair, the first speaker we have registered is Stephanie Walker. And
Stephanie, when you join us, please state your name.
Hi there, I'm Stephanie Walker, and I live down the street from the proposed building.
Go ahead and make your submission to the committee, please.
Can you just state your address for the record?
Absolutely. I'm at 218 Ashworth Avenue, so I go by this garage every time that I need to park behind my house. So I have quite a few objections to constructing this building. Not sure where to start, but after hearing the first presentation, I do have a few concerns about it being intended for the owner's parents, because I do know that they have a current basement apartment on this property, so I'm guessing that it could actually be intended for use as a rental unit or perhaps even an Airbnb, because they have become quite popular. So that does concern me. Another concern is the construction of this building would impede so many people that do use the laneway to access their parking pads or garages. So that's a really big concern just while the building is in construction. Additionally, I'm doubting the idea of them reusing the garage. It is a mammoth structure already, and with all of these, I guess it lists 10 separate requested variances. It seems to me like they want to just bring it down and use the footprint so that it allows them to build what they want. A loophole with new construction. So I question their motives. Another thing is, this is really, a family, community street. We're a very interesting dead-end street that's in the middle of not much else. We're not much of a neighborhood, so the street stands alone in its community, and I don't really know the gentleman that owns this building. He hasn't really taken part in joining anything on the street and meeting us. So I'm a bit wary to jump on board and jump onto his side because I don't know him, and I'm a bit reluctant to be in favor of more rental units, more strangers coming into the neighborhood, especially with Airbnb as a possibility. Yes. Sorry, I have a toddler with me. Another thing is that, this is the biggest house on the street. Making it bigger, giving it a bigger footprint, would go against the neighboring houses. So, well, that's just a point. that I have down. It's a concern that we would be, I guess, gaining the hardscaping and losing the possibility of just rainwater being able to permeate the ground. Because I know that, you know, we're from Davenport, we're on a steep hill, and in this case, from the laneway, the water just goes straight down towards the main house. So if I were the owner of the house, I would not want that to be a possibility for me. What's another thing? Sorry, I'm just going over my notes.
I'm going to ask you to begin. I'm going to ask you to begin to make your final statements, please.
Yeah, so my final statement is, so I'm located at 218, and right flanking my house and my neighbor's house, because we're attached, is two triplex units owned by the same gentleman. So at number 220 and 214 are triplex units owned by the same gentleman that I've already heard talking about how wonderful this would be if all the garages were able to be made into residential units, because he wants to then turn his garage at 220 into a unit.
Your time is now up.
Pardon me?
Your time is now up. Your 5 minutes are now up. But thank you for your submission.
To conclude, I just would like to say that I am very much opposed to this.
Thank you very much for your participation and submission.
Thank you for your time.
Moderator, do we have another speaker?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Linda Leontis is the next registered speaker. Linda's been unmuted.
Linda, as you join us, please state your name and address.
Oh, good morning to everyone. My name is Linda Leontis, and my address is 891 Davenport Road.
Go ahead. You have 5 minutes now to tell us what the impact of this application would be on you if it were to be approved.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning. My home on Davenport Road, it falls into the laneway, and I am their neighbor to the north. And from my area, concerns are with a substantially proposed reduction of soft landscaping. How will the property contain its runoff water? Will that water be drained into the laneway? And if so, will it be graded? In what manner? Will it be graded? Will it affect any of the sewers? We do have two sewers. One sewer is to the north of the property, which is in front of my garage, and there's one that's at the end of the laneway. That's where Ashworth begins. So my concern is that you know, you're reducing the soft landscaping, which is there for I'm assuming a very good reason. It's there into the, you know, bylaws and such. And if everybody were to do that, what would that impact be? We do have some neighbors to the west of where I am on Christie Street, and they have their water draining into the laneway. So I'm just concerned that, you know, you're going to be walking and it's just going to be water everywhere, or when there is some sort of rainstorm, etc., where is that water going to go? And it is a substantially, as the speaker said before, the neighbor, it's a substantially large home. So it's a large property. It is the largest on the street. It's a standalone property. So that's one area of concern. And the other area is the project does, we could argue whether it's for the better or for the worse, but it does substantially change the character of, you know, our Witchwood neighborhood. And it's also setting a precedent for future building. I wasn't aware that the neighbors on Ashworth, you know, other neighbors were thinking of this, but that's my concern, is that if we all built laneway houses, including myself, then it becomes a high density element in the neighborhood. The laneway is there for, you know, a reason. I'm not opposed to change, you know, but it has to be done in a thoughtful manner where it does not impact the other residents in any manner, because we've all moved to our neighborhoods here, have our homes here. It's not right to have other people's changes impact our quality of life for living or our neighborhood or how we use that laneway. It's a quiet laneway. It's quiet because it's there for, it's got garages, and sometimes, kids might play in it, et cetera, but it's not meant, I don't believe, to actually have, people living there. If everyone or more people decided to have this as part of, their homes, and again, there'd be more noise, there'd be more traffic. How would everybody in the laneways be able to maneuver their vehicles if there was? It's already tough now. People are quite kind in terms of how they maneuver in and out. But if you add more vehicles, you're going to need, a stoplight there, to a traffic control person there to be directing the traffic, especially during morning and peak hours. The other question is, I don't know if you can answer it, or maybe there have been studies, is can our specific neighborhood support additional infrastructure? Is there been a study done on the viability of this particular project? Because my concern is, okay, this is going to be built, but what about future? How many more are going to be built? And I think the time to make these studies and comments and thoughtful comments are now, because once this is done and it's over, it's going to have, other people being interested, and then how would you say no to the people after this project? It would become harder, and I just think that now is the time to ensure that we actually have that infrastructure to support additional, whatever is going to be needed, whether it's plumbing and water, electricity, etc. Yes.
I must ask you now for your final thought on this, please.
Sure. Yes, the final thought is I just think I would like to have additional consideration for the impact of the soft landscaping, and in future, we don't know if this property and when it might be sold, what the future use of it will be, and having B&B, is not something that's very attractive in our neighborhood, and I'm concerned about that, the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for yours. Okay, we'll return now to the agent for rebuttal on the issues that were raised by the two speakers. I heard the recurring themes that this is the biggest property on the street, and the result of the application would be to even increase the sense of massing that the property gives to the street. That was one issue that we'd ask you to comment on, agent. The other issue is that of stormwater management. And both speakers were concerned about what you had in mind for stormwater management. You're asking to reduce your soft landscaping in the rear from the required 75% to down to 61%. The thought is that each property should do its fair share of absorbing stormwater. So those are the issues we'll ask you to comment on, please, agent.
Okay, yes, thank you. And thank you for the interested speakers. Thank you for taking the time to bring this to everyone's attention. So yeah, I'll speak to the massing of the house first of all. I actually live one street south of here on Melita myself. I'm part of this neighborhood. Actually, this is not the only detached 2.5-story house. It is one of only 2 detached houses on Ashworth, but more than 75% of the houses are 2.5 semi-detached houses. So they have all similar height, all similar massing. This is not the largest house on this street by any means, but it is on a corner property, so it does kind of stick out a little bit more. So that's the first issue. As for rainwater, that is a very important issue to bring up. So first of all, this is an existing garage already. So the condition of the kind of like the roof catching water and how rainwater is managed now, that's what it is now. This is not going to change that. This is not making the stormwater management. We're not adding any extra, roof space that isn't already there. However, you do have this carport, which is also a concern to me. So there, in the plans, there we do have we have green roofing planned, planters planned on the porch roof, and permeable eco green pavers for the parking lot area as well. So that is absolutely, that is on top of my mind, that yes, everyone has a responsibility to contain all the stormwater onto their property. So even though part of this roof slopes towards the laneway, all that's going to be directed back into this backyard. So if anything, the stormwater is going to get better on this particular corner. So and those two reasons. But the third mitigation that we're going to do is actually to have an above ground cistern to collect extra rainwater, to be able to water the plants and the new tree and all of that. So this is absolute of top concern in this application, and I have dealt with this all along. So, okay, so those are the two issues that have come up. The other concerns from the first person with regards to rental and the construction access, we can't park bins and construction equipment on these laneways, so we have to contain it on the property. There's no question that people are going to maintain access to their own garages absolutely throughout. So that I can't speak any more to that. And as to rentals in this neighborhood, this neighborhood is zoned for this. There are triplexes, there are basement apartments on my street and on Ashworth everywhere. This is a regular part of this neighborhood, and this slight density increase is really keeping with the official plan. This is meeting the test. We're adding up, density into these very safe neighborhoods. And to speak to the safety, the lane, of the quietness of again, these do not speak to the variances. None of the interested parties can speak to issues with the variances themselves, but this is an opportunity to have more eyes on the laneway, right? That these are dilapidated buildings back there. If in my cover letter, there's some photos of it at the back there, but these are falling apart garages. That's prime vandalism. That's prime just abuse of the space. So having this building on this corner as eyes on this laneway is actually going to be an overall benefit.
Thank you. Let's go to the panel now. Panel, questions for the agent, please. Go ahead. Mr. Clay.
Chair, I wonder if you talk a little bit about, with the agent, about height. I noticed that one variance is seeking 0.9 meters above permitted for height. And looking at the design, it's obviously got a peaked roof, but I wonder, is that a design feature that you're asking for additional height, or is it a technical component? Is there a reason why this two-story laneway suite has to be all 7 meters?
Yes, it is a technical reason. Okay, so the first is we're reusing the existing structure. So already we have like an excess in height on the first floor with the kind of the roof joist that we're going to reuse. So we're already kicking it up there. So we do only have kind of 7 feet and a bit in one of the bedrooms that faces the laneway there. So it is kind of low on that side anyways. And the peaked roof is really about being able to get, in a cold climate, to be able to get better insulation in that roof, to have better water shedding and ice shedding on this roof. Like if I can avoid designing flat roofs, I do, because I just think it's better, and I think it's more fitting with the character of the neighborhood as well. But also this gets us some extra skylights to get some extra light in there. And as well, the reason I kept the pitched roof on the opposite side was to maintain the 45-degree angular plane on the other side. So I'm working within the constraints of the bylaw.
So just a follow-up, I know you've got almost 9.5-foot ceilings on the first floor. Are you saying you can't adjust that to bring those down to a little bit?
Yeah, yes, I absolutely, I could. It's just then we would be demolishing this building to build it, to lower it. So it's a question of being able to reuse an existing structure as much as possible to make this economically feasible and practical and quicker.
Further questions, panel? Hearing none, then we're at the point that the panel can take this application into committee for discussion and moving toward a motion. Okay. Comments to Mr. Dallantini?
Mr. Chair, I'll start off the discussion. I just like to commend the agent for her presentation materials. I found that it was very easy to understand. I mean, if you just look at the variances on the face, you know, they're, especially with respect to the height and the penetration of the angular plane, that often gives me concern when I see laneway suites in terms of addressing size, massing, impact. But I think, in my view, and I'm critical of that, particularly when it comes to the height, I think the way the building has been designed, I think it's very thoughtful, maintaining, although the peak of the roof is over, I think maintaining the slope of having a sloped roof, and the way I read it or understood it, particularly with the model that was built and the photographed, the dormer is what penetrates the angular plane. The other thing that I initially had concerns about were the carport and the deck. I don't typically, I have concerns about decks on laneway suites, but I think in this case, because it is a corner, it's a unique situation. We've got, I believe it's Davenport to the north, that sits at a higher elevation, as the agent pointed out in her materials. And the fact that the deck is pulled back from the property to, I believe it's the east, the only abutting neighbor, I think that has been thoughtfully designed so as to reduce impact. So the long and the short of it is, I'm in support of the application, notwithstanding the numerous variances. I think this, because it's a corner lot, and I think because of the thoughtful design, I can support this application. I'm not saying that further down the lane I would be in support of this application, but I think where it's situated and the way it's been designed, I think it addresses impact on some of the neighbors. So those are my 2 cents on the application.
Thank you. Other thoughts?
I'll just, if you might, Cheryl, I think I was originally concerned about the height, mainly because I'm not sure I'm convinced that there's a compelling reason why, even with some innovative design, that couldn't be brought under the as of right 6-meter permission. I kind of agree with Lisa in the sense that this is a unique lot. I mean, it's on a corner. If it was mid-block, I might have a slightly different perspective, but given the unique nature of where it's actually located, I think the excess is modest and won't have a negative impact on the surrounding trees. So given that, I think I can support one as well.
Thank you. Mr. Cheng.
Now, again, I agree with my 2 other colleagues. I think it might look big on the by reading the numbers, but I'm glad to see those models and drawings. I think they're convincing. I look at the 3D maps of the surroundings. It is a bit, I mean, it is a process to intensify the neighborhood, but I don't think it will create all those problems that the other oppositions were bringing up to. So I would be in support of this application.
Thank you. For my part, I was concerned about the reduction, what appears to be a reduction in soft landscaping that the neighbors raised. I understand this, it's an existing condition, and I did take note of the mitigation that the agent is proposing to reduce that impact. So I too would support the application, and I'll look to panel for a motion on this application, please.
Cheryl, I'm happy to move
please.
A motion to approve this application, and I don't believe there are any conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second?
And with the standard engineering conditions, pardon me.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded by Mr. Cheng. So, motion to approve, seconded before the panel. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And the motion is carried unanimously. The application is so approved. And with that, The panel moves along to consideration of item number 3, 101 COADY Avenue. On this application we have before us applicant's submission, correspondence from the agent, 29 June. There's a map highlighting support from neighboring properties submitted by the agent. And in support, there's correspondence in the form of 8 form letters. They are signed by the owners and occupants of 84, 86, 90, 92, 99, 103, 107, and 111 COADY. And on this application, we do not have any registered speakers, so we'll go straight to the agent. Agent, please join us, stating your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Mike Dio Rivera, and I am the agent acting on behalf of 101 COADY Avenue, and I'm with Replacement Design, located at 911 Davenport Road.
Very good. Good morning to you. I'm going to ask my colleagues on the panel whether they'd like a presentation or not, or want to go straight to questions. Have panel members need a presentation here? No. Any questions for the agent? Don't hear any. So in that case, I'd look to panel for a motion on the application, please.
Chair, I'm happy to move motion, but I wonder, did the agent have anything they wanted to add before we go into committee?
Well, okay, agent, do you have anything in particular you want to say about your application?
I'll just make it short. I think our application kind of speaks for itself. We're not really increasing the overall footprint here by a lot. We're keeping to the same depth as the existing one-story side there and rebuilding that at the same time. We have the support from the neighbors on either side. We're well in line with similar approvals that have been made in the area. Even though our GFA might look high, the existing GFA is already 0.89. And we're asking for 0.91, so there's very little change there overall. And there's other approvals on the street, such as 30 COADY. That was approved for 1.07, so we're well within similar GFAs in the area. Our parking condition is the same as the existing. The rear yard setback is the same as the existing setback for that one-story addition. As I mentioned, that we're just simply squaring off here. I think everything's pretty straightforward here. We have the neighborhood support. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, but I think the application speaks for itself here.
Yes, it does look to me as if there's been a good effort to go out to the neighbors and in the form of the 8 letters of support. Okay.
Tim, happy in that respect to make a motion to approve the application. I think it's very straightforward. The variances are minor, and I think it will be a significant contribution to the neighborhood. So I move approval of this application, no conditions.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Clay to approve, seconded by Ms. Valentini. All those in favor, show of hands. And the motion is carried. The application is so approved. And panel moves on to number 4. Item number 4 is 616 Davenport Road. On this application, committee has before it applicant's materials, covering letter from the applicant, and we have comments from Ravina Natural Protection, Urban Forestry, 2 comments actually, also comments from Transportation Services. And I shall ask the agent to join us, stating your name and address, please.
Hi there, this is Julia Needham speaking. I'm also here with my husband, who's also a homeowner and resident of 616 Davenport Road.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the panel. Panel, do we want a presentation on this application, or do you want to go straight to questions of the applicant? And if neither of those are in order?
I don't need presentation.
Okay. Then I think, are we ready to go straight to a motion? We can go straight to a motion. I'll look to panel members for a motion, please. Ms. Valentini.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to jump in. This one is, to my views, very straightforward. I think the material speaks for itself. They're asking for a front parking pad, and because they're converting the garage into habitable space. It was noted in the materials, and I noted it myself, there's already front parking on this street and in front of this property because the garages are too small. So I'm in support of the application. I think, in my view, it makes sense. And I'm happy to bring a motion forward for approval unless my colleagues want to add something else. But it would be a motion for approval. It would be subject to the conditions set out in the Transportation Services memo or email that requires that the applicant secure and maintain a front yard parking license. And there are no other conditions.
Thank you very much for that. So there's a motion. Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded by Mr. Chang. So moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, show of hands, please. Unanimous vote to carry the motion, and the application is so approved. Panel moves along to item number 5, 369 Ashland Avenue. On this application, we have before us just the submitted materials by the applicant. There's a covering letter from the agent dating back to January, and another one dating to late July 27. So I'll ask the agent to join us, stating his name and address, please.
Good morning, Sir Chair and committee members. My name is Stephen Key. I am a planner from Design Plan Services, and we have been retained by the owner of 369 ASHDALE.
Very good. Okay, panel members, the applicant, or the agent is with us now on 369 ASHDALE. Do we need a presentation on this application? Do you have any questions for the applicant or the agent? Ms. Valentini.
Something, just clarification. I'm assuming the consent has already been granted in this case because we don't have the consent before us, but is that correct by looking at the plans?
Through you, Sir Chair, to answer the question. So the proposed consent is actually determined as a delegated consent. It's just a lot line adjustment. So it will be reviewed and decision will be made by the Secretary Treasurer.
And I have a question.
So there's not a decision yet on that?
I haven't received any decision yet.
Okay. Can we grant a variance without the consent? I don't know. Anyway.
Oh, this is important then. So there is an application for the severance?
Mr. Chair, just to clarify,
Please.
there is an active consent application for a lot addition. Notice of application was sent out, and the decision will be made on Friday of this week.
Made by what party? By what authority?
By myself, the Deputy Secretary Treasurer.
Okay. Then are we premature in deciding this now, or are we okay to decide on this now?
I would suggest that you decide today, yes.
We're okay to decide
Yes.
today. Thank you very much for that. Okay, that in mind, my question to the agent is there was mention made of concern were this to be approved of future access issue to one of the two properties. Could you comment on whether there will be any future access issues created by what we're being asked to decide upon here today?
To answer that question, Sir Chair, there won't be any access issue for 369 Ashdale. I believe that's the subject property. So there's no intention for the owner right now to enclose that rear portion of that property. So so the fence will stay where it is right now, and people are okay to, residents of 369 Ashdale can exit from the rear of that fence. So there's not going to be any access issue for any residents in both properties.
Okay, supplementary then on that. Down the road a few years, when the two properties are perhaps not owned by the same owner, the fence could be moved over, and would that prohibit access to the rear by on the one side? In other words,
again, that's not. Sorry, to answer your question, Sir Chair, that access to the rear is not the primary access. The access is actually front of 369 Ashdale. So I believe it shouldn't be a problem for any accessing to the property on 369 Ashdale down the road in the future.
Vehicle access to the property is at the front or the rear?
Sir Chair, so there's only one vehicle access as to the rear, which is to the garage right now. There are no requirement for parking for 369 Ashdale. So by removing that part, it doesn't create any efficiency for parking or for vehicle access.
Thank you. Other questions for the applicant? In that case, with no presentation being required or no further questions, I'll look to panel for a motion, please. Ms. Valentini.
Mr. Chair, my only concern was about the consent, but it sounds like that's something that is being, I knew it was being dealt with separately, but I'm not sure if we could deal with the variances before the consent, but I understand we can. So in that case, I think this is just, legalizing obviously what's existing where the consent, if the consent is granted. I think the applicant's agent noted that 367, the abutting lot, would be of a similar, it says will be a similar in terms of the size of the house in relation to the size of the lot. So I support the variances being requested in this case, and I'm happy to bring a motion forward for approval of the application.
Thank you very much. Second, is there a second to that motion? There is. Mr. Cheng seconds the motion. So motion before panel, seconded to approve. Those in favor, show of hands. And it is a unanimous vote to approve the motion and approve the application. And panel moves along to item number 6. Item number 6 is 105 Robert Street. The committee has before it applicant's materials as submitted. There are commenting reports from Transportation Services, City Planning, Heritage Preservation Services of City Planning. There is also staff report from Urban Forestry. And we have correspondence, only in the form of support correspondence, from the following addresses on Robert Street: 113, 111, 101, 107, 103, and 119 Robert. So with that, I'll ask the agent to join us, please, stating your name.
Good morning, my name is Jason Deltroy.
Good morning to you. Okay. Panel members, on this application, would you like to hear a presentation? Or shall we go right to questions? I have a couple of questions for the agent myself on this one. The new ancillary building that's proposed, can you tell me what the purpose of the building will be?
It'll be a combination of a legal parking spot to the south as well as an office to the north that will be heated and insulated.
Thank you. And there was this issue about why it appears to be so close to the original center line of the lane. Does it create an obstacle? Tell us about that whole discussion about the original center line of the lane and it's appearing to be close.
Sure, I'm happy to. So we're within the requirements of the center line of lane to the east, which is Sussex Mews Drive Lane. There's no issue with that. There will be no issue. It meets all the requirements, all the zoning requirements to the Sussex Mews Lane. However, to the north, there's a legacy lane that's not used. It's my understanding that has not been used in decades. It's just a legacy lane that has been left over from previous years. So we're asking for relief to the center line of the lane to the north. So that should have no impact to emergency vehicles or anything else.
I understand. Thank you. That does clarify it for me. Other questions for the agent panel members? Ms. Valentini.
Yes, I was going to ask about that very question about the lane and the setback. There is a correspondence from the planning department suggesting that they had no concerns, but there will be a report requesting that you eliminate the variance in relation to the center line of the lane. I'm assuming that's been cleared up because it's the lane to the north. I don't see any access issues with that, but we have this memo in the materials before us. We don't have a report requesting that you eliminate that variance, but did you talk to planning about that or clear that up?
Absolutely. I spoke to, I believe her name was Teresa, several times. So her report in the original preliminary planning review only said that to the center line of the lane. So when I spoke to her afterwards, just to clarify, she said, no, it's the lane to the north that it's in violation of, not the lane to the east, which is the main lane that everyone's using. So if that needs to have a separate report or clarification, we're happy to provide any, or if it can be done through planning, that's also obviously acceptable.
Maybe I'm confused by the planning memo. I understand what you're saying. I understand there's no issue with the main lane that services all the properties. It's just this small, I don't want to call it a redundant lane, but a small lane that's just services. I don't even know what properties it services. That's just maybe the subject property and the property adjacent. But I think I'm confused about the planning department memo saying that they need to eliminate the variance. Relate to the distance of center line of the lane. Was there a prior variance in the original application for the main lane? I forget the name of it. I'm sorry. The Sussex Mews lane. Was there originally a variance for that one, or?
No, there never was. Unfortunately, when the PPR is done, as I'm sure you're aware, we have to go for everything that's in that PPR. We have to ask for a variance for everything that's in that PPR. So we wanted to be clear that we do not need that variance to Sussex Mews Lane, so they wanted to remove what they thought was a variance for Sussex Mews, where it wasn't. The problem is in the PPR, they didn't say whether it was the north lane or the east lane. They just said to the lane. So we said, just to be clear, we don't need a variance for the center line of lane. So that's why they're asking to have that removed.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies that. Thank you.
Great, my pleasure.
Okay, panel members, do you have any further questions for the applicant or the agent? Or are we ready to move to a motion?
Chair, this is again fairly straightforward. I thought it was a very design. I was originally concerned about the possibility of habitable space, but there's no plumbing in the dwelling, so I don't have any major concerns about that. I think it's fairly straightforward. So I will move approval of this application, Victor Forestry, condition number 2. Lisa, following your conversation, variance 1 is still valid, is it, or to remove that?
They need that for
They need that.
the other laneway. Am I correct, everybody? I think so.
Yes, we'll need the variance for the laneway to the north as well as the side setback to the north. They're kind of hand in hand, they have to be done together.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll just move approval of this application subject to forestry number 2.
Very good, thank you. Is there a second to Mr. Clay's motion? It is seconded by Ms. Valentini. So motion to approve, seconded. All those in favor, show of hands. Thank you. Carried unanimously. The application is so approved, subject to forestry. Thank you. And we move along to item number 7 at 116 Wright Avenue. On this application, before us are the submitted materials by the agent. There's a planning rationale submitted on behalf of the agent. And in support, there are 3 form letters from 100, 106, and 118 Wright Avenue. So I'll ask the agent to join us now, stating your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Bliss Edwards, and I'll be representing the owners at 116 Wright Avenue this morning. My address is 77 Indian Road.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you. Okay, panel, on 116 Wright. Any panel member would like to hear a presentation on this? Or do we go right to questions? I do have a question for the agent. And this was with respect to height, please. Can you tell me the existing height of the 3-story home?
Yes. One second here. Blurred. 1 second.
Take your time.
Uh, 32.6 and a half feet currently.
Okay. For comparison, could you convert that to meters for me, please?
9.92.
9.92. Are you very sure of that? Because you're asking to 7.5 meters are allowed. The application asks for a height of 9.34.
Yeah, so the top of the roof is 9.92. And to that's the existing, but the top of the underside is the finished ceiling. What we're asking for is for effectively the dormer at the back of the house for the 3rd floor. That's the height.
Yes, but my question.
Can we show the elevation view, and so the chair would understand is the left side west elevation? If the screen can show that to the chair, so he would know that the height is already there. You expand it from the back, matching the height.
Good idea, thank you.
No problem. The next one, please. Sorry, the next one. Yes, this one. So she shows those bricks as
Yeah, the top of the
existing.
roof.
The asphalt shingles are existing, and then the vertical lines are.
Okay,
And
applicant,
then
does
she
this,
shows some shadow diagrams on the impact of the expansion down below.
okay, applicant, does this help you with my using this for reference? Does this help you? My question is the existing height of the existing three-story house, what is that height? So can you, does this help you answer that question?
Yeah, the existing height is 9.93 meters. And the top of the flat roof, the new flat roof, is 9.79. It's shown on the front elevation plan, the south elevation. Yeah. So there's the existing one, top of right there, 9.93. I can see, I don't know if I can mark up on this page. Yeah. That's to the right there, that number, 32.7, 9.93. And then you can see the top of the flat roof on the left-hand side of the page, following that thicker dotted line. You can see there that height is 9.79.
Right. I just want to add that if this is a non-flat roof, like an angle roof or hip roof, then the zoning will measure it from the half of the from the midpoint of the roof. So she is increasing the top because now she is adding a flat roof, not a hip roof. If the height is a concern of this discussion, so that's the height difference from existing and proposed. So maybe you can tell the chair what's the height from the midpoint of your hip existing roof, please. And he knows the difference.
Applicant, here's the essence of my question. Now that is that your variance is asking for 9.34 meters. No, variance number 3.
Yeah.
Side exterior main wall facing a side lot line will be 9.34.
Yeah,
And
that's the wall height on the west side. Yes.
okay, so do we? When you tell me the existing height is 9.9 something, it puzzles me. That's all I'm trying to get through is my puzzlement at this.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. The variance is for is for the main wall height, where the existing height of the peak roof is the 9.93. The variance is for this main wall facing a side yard. So the wall height is the 9.34.
Thank you. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Are there other questions of the applicant? If not, I'll look to panel for a motion, please. Ms. Valentini.
Happy to kick this one off, Mr. Chair. I thought the presentation materials were very well done, so thank you for that. For me, it helped me understand what was going on and sort of what is going on in the context of the neighborhood in terms of the additions you're proposing. I think the increase in FSI you've shown fits in with what was currently going on in the neighborhood. I also noted, notwithstanding the additions, you're maintaining the existing setback, so that's already an existing condition, sorry, that's not what I meant to say. And that the sidewall height, in terms of that variance, it is already, it's on one side of the proposal, but it's under the current overall height of the building. So I don't have any concerns with these variances. I think it fits in with the character of the neighborhood with what's going on. And I did note that you've got for the side, you've got a sloped roof on the side that you're doing the side addition, so that takes care of the massing on that side. So I'm in support of the application. I think it meets the 4 tests.
Do you care to make a motion to that effect? Or is that your motion?
Motion for approval, Mr. Chair, no conditions.
Thank you very much. Is there a second to Ms. Valentini's motion? It is seconded by Mr. Clay. So motion to approve, seconded. Those in favor, show of hands. Motion carried. Application so approved. Thank you. Panel moves on to item number 8. 78 Campbell Avenue. And on 78 Campbell, we have applicant's materials plus a cover letter from the owners. We have correspondence supporting from 76 Campbell and from 78 Campbell. And there is a report, a staff report from Transportation Services. Okay, I'll ask the agent to
Hi
join,
there, this is Alexa.
to join us, stating your name, please.
Alexa Turner, I'm the homeowner of 78 Campbell.
Very good. Good morning to you. Let me just check with the moderator.
Good morning.
Moderator, do we have someone registered here to speak in support?
Mr. Chair, we do, but we've called and emailed them, and it doesn't look like they're with us anymore.
They're not, okay.
No.
All right, then, fine. So on this panel, there are no persons speaking in opposition. And we are with the owner agent now. Okay, then, panel members, would you like a presentation on this application? Are there any questions for the owner applicant? Mr. Cheng. Go ahead, Mr. Cheng.
Hey, hello. I just want to ask a question that.
Mr. Cheng?
Yep.
I'm having trouble hearing you. Please.
Sorry, yeah, I'm using a different device this time. So I was going to ask the applicant about the transportation staff report that it mentioned about the width of the lane, I mean the setback from the development and the laneway. Is there any way you can make it to 2.5 meters?
I don't think we can, and to be able to maintain the staircase that we need, because we're as set back as we're like, so the existing structure is the exact same structure that we currently have. Are you talking about the setback to the laneway? Is that what you're talking about?
That's right. That's correct.
Yeah, so it's exactly what we have right now. We're not actually making any changes to it, and it seems to be that we have the same setback as all of our neighbors. So the only variation we're making to its size from that perspective is actually from the where the back end of our house is. So we've had to decrease it a little bit from that end in order to allow a staircase up to the rooftop, but we're making no changes to the laneway in terms of its measurements. So I don't think so.
Okay.
Further questions?
I had the same question. I'm sure Lisa did too. So I'm a little bit confused by transportation's report. Is the expectation that in order to satisfy this condition that part of the garage would have to be moved? I just don't understand transportation's thinking is on an existing garage. I know that's not something the applicant can necessarily answer, but I think I'm just reflecting amongst ourselves. It seems like an unusual condition.
I thought that it was that's what they were asking, to move the existing garage, which, looking at the location map, it looks like all the other garages are currently in similar locations. So I was kind of confused by that.
Yeah.
I haven't actually seen the report. Like, I was looking in our application details, so I'm not sure how best to answer that other than to say it's the exact same garage that we currently have. And so to move it would be highly unusual, especially given every single garage is exactly where ours is.
I'll read to you, if you haven't seen the report, let me read to you the recommendation that it contains. It reads, and I quote, "Require the owner to set back the rear detached garage 2.5 meters from the center line of the public lane." That's what transportation has written to us.
So I guess the best thing I can just say to that is that that would require everyone in our lane, including on the Symington side of our lane, who also aren't set back 2.5 meters, which I think would look highly unusual and cut off valuable space that's already there.
That was something I was going to ask, because usually when you put a live load on the garage, you have to strengthen the roof. And that's the moment that someone would come in and say, hey, you need a building permit, you need the square foot zoning, and then they start looking at all these plans, right? So I think the rationale behind, based on my experience, is the engineer department knows that you will have to submit structural drawings, and for that reason you have to rebuild it in some way. And unless this garage, you can prove it that it was already designed with a live wall on top, which is very unusual, right? So maybe he was thinking that you will have to rebuild it anyway, and if that's the case, can you move it up, or can you just reduce the length? But if you reduce the length, you don't meet the parking requirement, you can park the car inside. So that's what I'm wondering, is are you going to do an overhang or something like that? But that's my comments. I don't have a conclusion as well. I'm a little bit confused here as well.
Yeah, so I think my concern would be, because the other thing that we're doing is, I understand the existing slab is the parking requirement that we need, and we're actually seeking a variance to make it a little bit smaller, even though you would be able to still park your car in the garage. We will have to rebuild it for sure to be able to support the structure of the roof. But I think that if we had to maintain the 2.5 meters, we would then have to come back to you to seek another variance to do that. And it would look extremely odd to be that set far back. If you look at our alley, which is actually quite a lively alley, we would look very strange.
So to conclude, basically we're here to discuss.
Mr. Cheng can't hear you.
Garage. Oh, sorry again. That you are going to rebuild the garage anyway for the live load, for the rooftop patio, to improve the space at the back. You're building the stairs at the back as well. And in this case, we're here to see whether you should reduce the length to meet that 2.5 requirement, or build it as is with the original footprint.
Yes, and I think our ask is that we build it with the original footprint, taking into account that it already exists that way, that every other building and garage on both sides of our lane are consistent with ours. And that we would be completely eliminating a parking spot, and it would necessitate us parking on the street, which I think, given the density of that area, is not advisable. So I think that would be our position, and our hope that you approve that.
Very tricky. Okay.
Ms. Valentini.
Notwithstanding the condition by engineering, in terms of, I'm surprised that there are no neighbors opposing a deck on top of a garage. In terms of impact, I would think that would be, there would be an impact in terms of overlook, that kind of thing. Can you speak to that, please, in terms of that? It helped me understand how this is, suitable, because normally when we see rooftop garages, unless there's extenuating circumstances, often I don't feel like I'm in favor of them because of those reasons. And so is there an extenuating circumstance that A, makes you require a rooftop garage, and B, that will address any other impact on neighbors in terms of overlook, that kind of?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So firstly, we spoke to most of our neighborhood, and with COVID, we were just a bit wary of having everyone sign everything, but we've had a lot of support, because I think on our side of Campbell Avenue, we have 5 foot or 5 to 6 feet between the back of our house and our garage. And I think there is a lot of interest in maintaining private outdoor space on that side of Campbell Avenue in a way that maintains light and privacy, which we intend to do by glass fencing and keeping it relatively low. We're not going over the max height. In fact, people have already done it across the street. We see it again. I don't know if those were approved by you and legal, but people seem to be doing it. And I think that there's a wish in our community to maintain garages for parking, to allow our relatively small footprint of a lot to be used at its maximum capacity. And when we've gone through our neighborhood, which we've done, most people have said that if they could do it, they would too, to maintain some outdoor space, which we all don't have. So the alternative to maintain outdoor space would be to get rid of a garage altogether, which I don't think, our hope was to maintain both. And so I think why this is a bit unique is it's not like we have a backyard at all. So this is trying to maintain a parking spot, maintain the storage of a backyard, and create some private outdoor space. And I think the people who we've spoken to, which is kind of both sides, have said that given that it's already starting to be done, they feel really comfortable with that transition in our community.
On that same question, I can see the letter from number 76, which I assume is to one side of you, but I don't see any communication stating support from, or otherwise, from number 80, which I assume is on the other side of you. Did you speak?
Yeah, so we, so we have her name's, her name's Tara Handela. We've spoken to her. I think she's told us she's in support. So our understanding is she's in support. We've actually walked through the designs with her at length, and she also has told us she's in favor of this. I think the why you see you don't have any letters of opposition, and certainly no one's called in opposition, is because we have found anyway that there has been overwhelming support for this, given the unique nature of our street and given how limited our space is. A lot of people have said to us, including Tara, who lives at 80 Campbell Avenue, that there's a wish to be creative in how we maximize this private outdoor space.
Okay, thank you very much.
My question, Chair, to the applicant. I thought I heard you say bring up some form of privacy screen, correct?
Yeah, so the fencing, we're proposing that we use frosted glass as privacy. Certainly with the height, we've been advised by our designer that it shouldn't impact people's light. But we want to do everything we can to maintain the integrity of that. So we're going to be using frosted glass as our fencing around to ensure that there's privacy for both neighbors, and to ensure that there is no light that is going to be disrupted, which we've told wouldn't be happening anyway, but just out of an abundance of caution. Is what we've done there. And given that no one has backyards, again, I don't think there's the same concern looking into someone's property because there's nothing to look at.
So the opaque fencing that you're proposing is proposed at a height of what?
I think it's on our plans at, I'm just looking here that you have. I can see that there'll be 1.07 meters. And then certainly we'll use shrubbery and other kind of landscaping techniques to maintain the privacy. We're trying to be as low as possible, so that, again, we're not an eyesore to the community. I can say that about 5 or 6 houses down from us, again, I don't think it's legal, but who knows, there is the garages are quite elevated, and they actually have probably 10-foot fencings over there. And certainly from an aesthetic perspective, we didn't want to replicate that. We wanted to keep it as natural and low as possible.
Okay, so you're proposing 1.07. Typically on rear balconies, second level or third story, 1.5 meters is kind of the trade-off that we use. They're not too big to be imposing, but high enough to create a wall that prevents overlook. Would 1.5 meters work better, or would it work in your case?
Yes, it would. We could absolutely do that. I just don't know if we exceed your maximum height or whether there's another variation required, but from our perspective, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Further questions, panel? Anything else? Mr. Chang?
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. Chair, I'm a little bit disagreeing.
A little louder, please.
Sorry, I'm not that in agreement with increasing the height of the railing into the screen. If there are no objections from the neighborhood, it looks like there's a culture, there's a rooftop patio parties happening here, there's a community growing here. I don't think we should force them to increase the height. It could be a new community developing in this area. So I think we should give them the freedom I mean, the guardrail is for safety, but I think we should give them some freedom to determine the height of the screen whether they want privacy or not.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with Aaron. I think the applicant makes an interesting point about impact of light on the neighbors as well. Given that this is a pretty dense tightly packed housing area, I think that's actually not a bad thing in this case. And there is a laneway on the back, so you're really having much overlook on the other way. It's just the adjacent neighbors. So I would agree with Aaron on that.
Okay, so we've actually gone into committee then on this application, so that's fine. I appreciate your comments. Any further, we're in committee now. Any further thoughts on the application?
Yeah, if I could, Chair, I'll kick it off. I actually thought this was a pretty good application. As Lisa says, normally we do have some concerns about earthing on ancillary structures, but I think in case I just looked at the configuration of housing and density and the tightness and the relatively small backyards that all the houses along that strip have, and this seems to be a creative solution to having amenity space in that situation. And I thought the design was reasonable, and given that they've spoken to the neighbors, and now there's no concern, but I think folks are looking to this as a viable option down the road to address similar circumstances with their houses. So I actually support this application.
Do you care to make a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion. Delighted to make a motion, Chair. I would like to move that this application be approved. I'm going to be provocative here. I don't think that the transportation condition actually makes a whole lot of sense. I don't think in this instance and that demolishing and or moving the garage, given the size of the backyard, makes a whole lot of sense. And I was convinced by the argument that every garage along that laneway is in a similar situation. So I'm going to propose we don't include the transportation condition.
Okay, motion by Mr. Clay. Motion by Mr. Clay to approve the application without conditions. Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded by Mr. Chang. Motion to approve, seconded. Those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion is unanimously approved, and the application is so approved. With that, we have finished number 8. I'm going to have a 10-minute recess now, and we'll return in 10 minutes at 5 to 12 on item number 9. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, it'll be item 10. 9 was deferred.
Thank you for that correction. We will be on item number 10. We now resume. And we resume on item number 10, number 9 having been deferred. Item number 10 is 1731 Dufferin Street. And on this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant, and there are also presentation materials submitted by Leila Karamzadeh, the agent, on the 30th of July. So, on item number 10, moderator, do we have the agent with us? Okay, we'll ask the agent to join us, stating your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Leila. I am from Q Architects and presenting 1731 Dufferin Street.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm going to
Good
ask
morning.
I'm going to ask my panel colleagues if they require a presentation or whether they would prefer to go straight to questions for you. Panel? Presentation? Any questions for the agent? Miss Valentini.
Hi, I just wanted to confirm that the front one-story addition is just the enclosed porch that's currently existing?
Yes, that is. All these variances is coming from that enclosed porch, which exists for more than 40, 50 years.
And then the rear second-story addition is going over the existing footprint, is that correct?
Yes, exactly. That's correct.
If there are no further questions, let's move to a motion, panel, please. Ms. Valentini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to bring forward a motion on this application. It's, in my view, very straightforward. The front one story is currently there, and we're just seeing the rear two story over top of the existing footprint. And I'm happy to bring a motion forward for approval. Some of these variances are existing conditions, and in my view, it meets the 4 tests. There are no conditions.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Chang. So moved and seconded to approve without condition. Those in favor, show of hands, please. Motion carried unanimously, and the application is so approved. Panel moves on to item number 11. 163 Bellwoods Avenue. And on this application, we have before us applicant materials submitted. There is a report from Urban Forestry, and we do have correspondence in support from 161 Bellwoods and also from 23 Bellwoods. Okay, and I'll ask the agent to join us, please, stating your name and address.
From FDL Design and Construction. I'm the agent for the 163 Bellwoods. And the company address is 107 Washington Circle, Toronto.
Thank you very much. And you're the agent or the owner?
I'm the agent.
You're the agent, thank you. Okay,
Yeah,
panel
thank you.
members. Would we like a presentation, or do you have questions? Are there any questions to go to? Ms. Valentini, yes.
Mr. Chair? Yep.
Yes.
If the agent could just clarify, are there other front walkouts or in the neighborhood?
So neighborhood, and I think, I think the neighbors support our proposal, and we just request the allow and the front access to the basement secondary unit.
Oh, no, I understand that, sir, but I was wondering, are there any other front walkouts, like you're proposing a front walkout in the front and it's not permitted under the bylaw? Are there any other on the street like that?
In the street,
basement
and
walkout?
yeah, I'm not really sure because there are some at the front entrance. Yeah, definitely, but I'm not sure if they are for the secondary unit.
Okay, that's fair enough, but there are other front basement entrances, I guess.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Okay,
Because
thank you.
The original permit is that bylaw is permitted to have a front entrance for the single unit. So now I'm declined and apply, and we apply for the basement secondary unit. So that yeah.
Other questions?
Chair, if there are no other questions and my other colleagues would agree, I think this is a very straightforward application. I did look around the neighborhood, and on this street there are a lot of basement walkouts and a lot of rental accommodation in this neck of the woods. So I think this is quite in keeping with the neighborhood. I would move approval of this application, subject to forestry condition number 1.
Okay, motion to approve subject to forestry. Do we have a second for that motion? It is seconded by Ms. Valentini. So moved and seconded to approved, subject to forestry. Those in favor? Show of hands. Motion is carried. The application is approved, subject to forestry. The panel moves on to item number 12. (948) Logan Avenue. And on item number 12, we have the applicant's materials before us. There are staff reports from Engineering and Construction and also from Urban Forestry. And there are a total of 10 form letters in support from owners and occupants of 979, 945, 954, 951, 952, 958, 940, 946, 935 Logan, plus 47 Arundel. And also there are 3 photographs of the subject property submitted by the agent on the 29th of July. So, on this one, I'm going to just check with the moderator. Moderator, I see the agent, the owner, and we have one further party. Are they in opposition or support? Do we know?
Mr. Chair, I believe it's 2 other parties, but no, that's right. The agent, the owner, and then 1 party. But the party who's registered to speak, who isn't the agent or owner, they were here before, but it looks like they've left. And we called them.
Okay, I'm going to proceed then. If you make contact, we'll just wait for a moment while you're trying that to see if we can get a hold of that party.
Mr. Chair, it looks like they've joined us.
Oh, good, okay.
Would you like me to unmute them?
Yes, please, I want to ask them a question
When you have
about their
finished
stance.
recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
They didn't pick up. It was their answering machine.
Okay then, we just have the owner and the agent. I'll ask the agent to join us now, stating your name and address, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Michael Shrazatvar. I'm the agent on behalf of the owners at 948 Logan Avenue.
Okay. And Michael, let me ask you, you're the agent, does the owner also wish to speak?
Unless there's an additional information that she may want to address to the committee members, but I don't believe she wishes to speak. I'll be doing most of the speaking.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Just needed to clarify that. And now I can go to my fellow panel members. On this one, panel, number 12, would you like a presentation? Do you have questions for the applicant?
Chair, I wonder if I could just ask a question, just in terms of the landscaping. I think that's the one that jumps out at most of us is the soft landscaping. I'm assuming, looking at the site plan, the main reason is because of the wooden deck, the existing wooden deck. Is that correct?
That is correct. So that's what's triggering our soft landscaping between the existing house and the proposed garage or laneway suite. That's taken away from our self landscaping percentage. Now, after discussion with planning, we both agreed that given the fact that it is a wooden deck, the deck boards allow for water and stormwater just to percolate to the substructure below, being gravel or just soil. So there shouldn't be any additional stormwater runoff or anything from that perspective.
Right, thank you.
Yes, that was what I noticed about the application too. It seems to be a large variance there. Can anything be done with the deck surface to allow stormwater to get through? Or how does what happens to the stormwater on the deck?
Well, it just basically goes to the surface below, which is just natural earth and soil below the actual deck area.
Okay, very good. Good. Any other questions for the applicant?
And as far as
if there are no further questions, then I'll look to panel for a motion, please.
I'll start off, Chair. I first of all commend the applicant for obtaining such extensive support for a laneway suite. I mean, this committee often sees the opposite rather than that. So good on you for doing that, and also staying within the as of right height and length and width. That was good. The only real issue is the soft landscaping. I think you've addressed that reasonably well. If my colleagues don't have anything to add, I'm happy to bring a motion to approve this application, subject to engineering conditions set out in the March 31st, 2021 memo, plus forestry condition number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Clay. Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded by Mr. Cheng. So moved and seconded to approve, subject to engineering and forestry. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Motion is carried unanimously, and the application is so approved. Thank you. Panel moves along now to item number 13, 237 High Park Avenue. And on 237 High Park, we have before us submitted materials by the applicant, covering letter from the agent, Sean Galbraith. There is opposition correspondence from 235 High Park Avenue and 236 High Park Avenue. I'll check with the moderator. Moderator, do we have the parties speaking in opposition on standby?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do.
Okay. Then I'll ask the agent, Mr. Galbraith, to join us, stating his name and address, please.
Good morning. My name is Sean Galbraith. I'm a planner here on behalf of the application. My address is 1 Young Street, Suite 1801.
Thank you very much. Mr. Galbraith, you have 5 minutes to present your application to panel members. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. If the covering letter that I submitted could be put on the screen, that would be very helpful. It has a couple illustrations that I think really help demonstrate. This is perfect, thank you. So the existing house is divided into 4 units, and it has been for decades as best I can tell. And it's a very, very small structure, double brick wall, no insulation. And it has effectively come to the end of its useful lifespan, and a new fourplex is proposed in its place. This new fourplex will include 3 3-bedroom units and 1 1-bedroom unit, greatly increasing its ability to have family size units, and it will be designed to passive house standards, so the highest environmental level that we currently have. Appreciating that it's along High Park, the great care was taken to the architectural style to help really make it fit into the character of the neighborhood, and appreciating that a new 3-story house will have impacts on neighbors. There are significant terracing at the back that you can see on the left side photo at every floor, so that the second floor effectively lines up with the house to its south, and the third floor effectively lines up with the house to its north. The building depth variance seems quite large, but it pertains to the below deck, the below grade space. You can see on this image here, the depth variance goes all the way out to the basement below the deck, the blue area on the right-hand side. And there are significant terracing again up to the third floor. The third floor itself is only 17 meters building depth, which is what is permitted if this would be a house. You can see again with how the units are laid out in the building. They're all 2-story units. The green one is the only 1-bedroom unit. The other 3 are 3-bedroom units. The existing driveway is going to be closed, and the garage will be used for 2 car parking spaces. A 2 parking space variance is required. The parking spaces in the garage will be accessed by the rear lane, which currently is not the case. This image here really illustrates I think the care that was put into aligning the second and third floors with their neighbors to the north and to the south. In my opinion, the variances are all minor and appropriate, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the neighbors or yourselves have.
Thank you. Panel members, any questions at this stage for the agent? We can move along to hear okay, we'll move along then to hear these speakers that are standing by. Excuse me, standing by. Moderator, who's joining us first?
Mr. Chair, the first speaker is Teresa Russell. Teresa has been unmuted.
If you would join us, please, speaker, stating your name and address.
Teresa, you can go ahead. You've been unmuted.
I'm sorry, I'm her husband, and she isn't here right now.
Okay. So maybe, Mr. Chair, we can move on to the next registered speaker and give Teresa a chance to come back.
Let's do that.
Sure. So the next speaker registered is William Tensuda. William, you've been unmuted.
We'll ask that Mr. Tensuda to join us.
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Could you please state your name and address?
My name's William Tensuda, and I'm the owner of 241 High Park Avenue.
Good morning to you. Okay,
Good morning.
You have 5 minutes, Mr. Tensuda, to present your concerns to the panel. We'd like to hear what impact this application would have on you if it was approved.
My only concern is the proximity to the side lot line. It's only 45 centimeters from the shared lot line with me, and I'm just concerned about the effect it would have on the sunlight and the views. And that's about all I object to.
Okay. Do you see the impact as being pretty significant, or how would you describe what the impact would be on your enjoyment of your property?
Well, like I say, I'm the landlord, and it would be my tenants would be impacted.
Yeah.
So I have pretty much a wide driveway too, so there is quite a bit of separation left, but it'll be less than what it is now because he's tearing down the whole house. So that's my main concern.
Okay, thank you. I'll see if panel members any questions for Mr. Tensuda. Okay, Mr. Tensuda, thank you. If there's nothing you wish to add to that, thank you. And I'll go back to the moderator now. Moderator, have we been able to connect with Teresa Russell?
Teresa, you've been unmuted.
No,
You
I'm
can go
sorry,
ahead.
she's still not here.
Okay, then, thank you very much. Okay, then, let's come back to the applicant, agent. And agent, really, the main question raised here is from party on one side of the property who is concerned about loss of sunlight and obstruction of current views. Can you comment on those issues, please?
Thank you. So the side yard setback does not trigger a variance on the north side or on the south side. The 45 centimeter setback is what is permitted by the zoning bylaw. And again, the terracing that we're introducing, we think will reasonably respond to the to concerns of shadowing on the neighbor to the north. Again, our third floor pretty much aligns, I think it's off by about 57 centimeters or so, aligns with the property at 239. But did I hear he was at 241 Hyde Park?
Yes, he's 241.
So he would be 2 houses away. I don't think we would have any impact on 241 at all. The setback between.
It looks like he's
sorry.
Sorry, is he not adjacent, or I think it's the adjacent
He thought he was
I
adjacent.
think it skips a number.
Yes.
Yeah.
He said he was adjacent.
I thought he was 2. Thought he was 2, but he mentioned 241 Hyde Park.
His address.
In any event,
his address is 241.
Apologies, you're right. There is no 239. Thank you. The setback between the shared property line between the 2 houses and the house at 241 is over 4 meters. It is quite a wide driveway there, and our side yard setback doesn't actually trigger a variance. As I mentioned, our third floor is pretty much aligned with the rear of 241, and I think it appropriately mitigates shadow impacts.
Thank you very much. And just for the information of panel members, there was also a letter received from 236 High Park Ave, which cited construction issues, noise and dust and so on. So construction issues, of course, are outside the mandate of the Committee of Adjustment. We are just dealing with the minor variances before us. Okay, then, we've heard from the agent, we've heard from registered speakers who are available to us, we've heard the agent's rebuttal. So we can take this now into committee for a motion or for.
Unless there are any questions for me.
If there are any, pardon me. You're exactly right. Are there any questions for the agent? Hearing none, I will now take the application into committee for discussion and a motion, please.
I'll kick off, Chair. First of all, the agent is very courageous to probe the panel for more questions, so good on you. I thought the proposal for this site and in this neighborhood was quite reasonable. This is High Park, a walk to the subway, an area that is almost dominated by low-rise apartment buildings and high-rise apartment buildings. It is very much a rental area. The variances themselves, I thought the agent explained well that the length and depth are largely triggered by below-grade construction, and the rear is nicely terraced to address any concerns about overlook. These are huge lots, very large lots, and I think can quite easily accommodate this kind of an application. Just an observation I will make on the application. It is really heartening to see 3-bedroom rental accommodations being brought onto the market. Part of our problem in the city is that much of our rental accommodation is 1 and 2 bedrooms. So it's really good to see family-sized rental accommodation being situated in areas where it's proximate to transit and proximate to parks and recreation and such. So just commend the owner of this application for doing that. So I think the variances, unless my colleagues have any thoughts to the contrary or anything they'd like to add, then I think this is a good application. I think I'd be happy to move approval of this application. I don't believe there are any conditions, so just a straightforward approval.
Motion to approve. Is there a second for that? It is seconded by Mr. Cheng. Motion to approve, seconded. Those in favor, show of hands, please. Carried unanimously, and the application is, pardon me, no conditions applied. The application is approved without condition. Panel moves along to the next item, number 14. (756) Bathurst Street. And on 756 Bathurst, we have applicant's materials, various presentation materials from the agent, and revisions to a, which were post the public notice submitted by the agent, received July the 9th. So we do have revisions which went out, which came in after the public notice. And plus that, there is one letter, and it is from Councillor Mike Layton. It is in support. Okay. So moderator, on this one, there are no registered speakers in opposition. So I'll ask the agent to join us, please, stating your name and address.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairperson and members of committee. My name is Judah Malalu, and I am the architect on the project, representing a Dufferin Booklist Cultural Center.
Good morning. Thank you.
My address is 14 Leswin Road, Toronto.
Thank you very much.
That's LEXWYN.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I understand that revisions were made. Is the just to be careful here, is the document we're dealing with now incorporate those revisions, the variances as requested?
Mr. Chair, I would request that the agent walk us through the revisions for the public record.
Okay, I think it's a good idea. So, agent, we're going to ask you. You submitted some revisions post public notice. We're going to ask you to explain those to us, just so that we know what we are voting on, and so that the written record of what we are dealing with is correct to those revisions?
Certainly, Mr. Chairperson. The major revision actually had to do with the originally submitted residential unit that was supposed to be on the 3rd floor. So that's been eliminated. Post-COVID, well, I guess with COVID considerations, it was determined that that space would be best used for community purposes. So it was appropriated for a community studio and for community programming that would allow for kids programming in that area and not compromise other programming for the center, because it would allow additional space for social distancing.
Let me stop you there. Let me stop you there, because that's important to know. So the purpose of the application, as stated, the one that is before all the committee members, is to convert the existing 3-story mixed-use building to a 3-story community center with 1 dwelling unit.
Right.
And by constructing a rear, second, and third. So if we were to eliminate those words "with 1 dwelling unit," the purpose,
yes,
the purpose
that,
of the application,
that would
that would do it, eh?
capture the essence of the proposal. Yes.
Okay. So, and let me ask. Okay. Are there any revisions we need to make to the actual 5 variances requested?
Yes, we did submit those changes under waiver, and that waiver was with reference to the 2 previous preliminary project reviews that we've had. So we have essentially reduced the impact on the variances and eliminated 1 that had to do with parking for the residential unit.
Can you refer to it? Can you refer to it by number, please, for everybody's clarity?
In the waiver, the waiver just shows that would be item number 3. A minimum of 1 parking space is required to be provided for the dwelling unit. In this case, 0 parking spaces will be provided. With the elimination of the residential dwelling unit, that item number 3 is now obviated.
Thank you very much. So we will strike item number 3 at the applicant's request. Minor variance number 3 is gone, panel members.
Thank you.
Anything else, Agent, that your revisions?
Yes. If we can go back to the waiver, which summarizes the remaining variances, please. Essentially, now we have 4 variances, the first 2 of which are essentially the same, because without the residential unit, the total permitted floor space index for all non-residential users is the same as the total permitted floor space index for users. And we have reduced that from previously 3.57 to 2.94. Item number 3, the bylaw requires 13 parking spaces for the community center use. We have been in our contact with transportation services, and given that the center is located in the heart of Mervish Village with an abundance of public transportation, the BLOOR Danforth subway just a block away to the north. The 511 Bathurst streetcar runs right in front, and 2 blocks to the south is the 94 Wellesley bus route. And transportation services did not have any objections.
Okay, well, what we're doing now is simply clarifying. So you're saying that minor variance number 4 remains. That's the variance you need. A minimum of 14 parking spaces is required. In this case, 0 parking spaces provided. We want that variance to remain, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, now that's fine. We're just clarifying the variances here that we're actually dealing with. Let me jump back. I think it's variance number 1. You said the building will have a floor space index equal to, are you changing 3.57 to something else?
Yes, we are changing 3.57 to 2.94.
Hold it right there, okay. Staff, yeah, variance number 1 is changing to 2.94. Variance number 2 currently reads, the building will have the floor space index. Just a second, for all non-residential uses equal to 3.41. Does that stay or go, or change?
That stays and changes to 2.94 as well.
Thank you very much. Staff, number 2. Number 3 is gone. Number 4 stands. And number 5.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I note that in the waiver, they say that 13 spaces are required, but in this public notice, it says 14. So the agent should comment on that.
Yes, with the reconfiguration of the plans, the overall area that we required for non-residential users basically came down. And with that revision, we eliminated 1 parking spot. So the total number of parking spots required, as noted in that waiver, is actually 13. Thank you for noticing that.
Okay then. All right. And lastly, my question to you is, with respect to what we have as number 5 minor variance regarding rear yard setback, the 2nd and 3rd story rear additions will be located 0 meters from the west rear lot line. Does that stay, change, or remove?
That stays exactly the same, Mr. Chairperson.
It stands, okay. Very good. I think now we have clarity on the application. Most important to have that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the panel now. Panel members, are you clear now on the nature of the application? And do you have any questions for the agent?
So, Mr. Chair, I do want to ask that the drawings here we are seeing are not up to date. We'll be just looking at the numbers and estimating. Am I right?
I beg your pardon?
We couldn't hear you, Mr. Chang.
Sorry, I have to. Yes, I was asking about, you can change the volume of the microphone, but I was asking, are these drawings that we are seeing now reflecting the changes, or it was still for the numbers that were shown before?
The drawings that were submitted under waiver do reflect those changes.
Okay, thank you.
That's important, so let me just check with staff. Are the drawings that the panel is looking at, do they reflect these revisions of July the 9th? For example, taking out the dwelling unit and replacing it and so on?
Yeah, there should be a second set of plans in there within your package titled Revisions Post Public Notice. That's where the waiver is, the revised waiver, and there are also plans in there.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, further questions for the applicant or for the agent? Anyone? Okay. So, I'll put this question to staff. Are staff satisfied that the application that we are dealing with is accurately reflected now? Yeah.
Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Thank you. Okay. Okay then, panel. With that, I think we're ready to move on to a motion or discussion if you prefer. But
I just had a quick question. Sorry, Mr. Chair. I was just looking through the revised plans. So the envelope of the building looks like it's staying the same. Is that right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Could you repeat?
Could you
It's
just
the reuse of the space.
could you just ask that again, please?
Sorry about that. The envelope of the building, as proposed, is staying the same as the original application. It's just the reworking of the interior so the FSI goes down. Is that right, or am I wrong?
No, the envelope on the first level stays the same, but we have second and third floor additions.
But
Yes, but in terms of your first proposal, and then you've made revisions.
Yes. Oh, okay. In that context, yes, that envelope remains, essentially the same. Nothing changes on the exterior. The reworking was just on the interior.
That's what I understood, but I wanted to make sure I was right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, then at this stage, we can take the application into committee. And I'll look to panel for a motion, if we're ready for that, or discussion if you prefer. Anyone ready for a motion?
Sure, I'm happy to move a motion.
Okay.
And I'm going to be very presumptuous to suggest that all the changes that we've been talking about have been captured by staff. Or would you rather me read them all out?
I think, no, I'm checking with staff here, and we are satisfied that we have captured all the revisions, and that what we're dealing with is what we think we are dealing with.
Okay, then I will move approval on that basis of the variance as amended by the applicant. And I don't believe there are any conditions. No. So as long as we can tie those changes that we discussed to what we've agreed on today, then I'll move that motion.
Very good.
As an ugly motion, I will appreciate.
Yes. Is there a second to that
Tying
motion?
them to plants, or I'm happy to second. I just wanted to make sure staff understood. You're not tying them to plants, are you, Larry?
No, I don't think so. I'm just tying them
Okay.
to, I thought the waiver actually was accurate in terms of the change bar. If we're going back to our revisions, this belongs as staff have captured those appropriately, and I believe they have.
Okay, sorry about that. So your motion's just for approval without conditions, and I'm seconding.
Very good. Okay, motion to approve the revised application, seconded. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion is carried unanimously, and the revised application is so approved. Thank you, and with that, we move on to item number 15. One, two, 4, 5 BLOOR Street West. On this application, committee has before it materials submitted by the applicant, presentation materials submitted by the agent 27 July, and we have a staff report from Engineering and Construction Services. Okay. And on this application, we are showing no registered speakers in opposition. So I'll ask the agent to join us, please, stating name and address.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. Ida Evangelista, 53 Bentworth Avenue, Toronto. I'm here on behalf of the owners of 1245 BLOOR Street West.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Chair, would you like a presentation, or do you want to go to questions, or how would you like me to proceed?
Well, I'll put that question to my colleagues. Panel, would you like a presentation on this application? Don't think we need one, no? Any questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Ms. Valentini.
Hi, good afternoon. I noticed in your presentation materials that the adjacent building next door, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out what the number is, has windows on the side of the property of its space. It's the building that has the. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to help me with the building number. Oh, okay, here we go. I think it's 1243.
Yeah, it's 1243. Yeah, 1243. Correct.
Okay, thank you. So what's going to happen with that? Because your additions, I am assuming, are going to enclose those windows. So I don't know how that's going to play out. Can you explain that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, Member Valentini. We have spoken to the building department and the owners of this building. Those windows are not to any bedrooms. So we're not infringing on any OBC requirements, and we are allowed to build the building as we have shown on the site plan. We have contacted the owners, building, or we made sure that everybody is on board.
So 1243, the owners themselves are also have no issues?
Yeah, they're right. They're aware of that. Yeah, okay. They're aware of that. We wanted to make sure that there's no window, that they do not lead to any bedrooms or anything to that effect. And we're
okay.
It's all good.
Okay, that was my concern. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cheng.
Hi, hello. Is the engineering report again. So have you, for the applicant, have you looked at the recommendation from the engineering development services?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I would like to member. So when we first started with this proposal, we were only 0.62 from the rear lot line. We worked with transportation and engineering construction services. We pushed the building back substantially. We also had Nextrans prepare a vehicle maneuvering, which we supplied to engineering. And there was an email that was submitted to Tiffany, who's the application technician. And engineering construction services said that they are able to provide a clearance memo. However, it wouldn't be ready for the meeting. So everything is being met. We've stepped it back quite a bit. We are substantially back from the rear lot line and from the laneway. And we did agree that we will have them, we will have the ECS memorandum attached as condition. However, we've already fulfilled all the conditions.
Very good. Thank you.
Great.
So if we were to approve this, we would make it conditional upon the ECS staff report. Thank you. Ms. Valentini.
All right, to clarify then, Ms. Evangelista, item number 2, the variance about the location of the rear lot line variance, does that need to be changed or no? Because the condition will satisfy that, and now maybe I'm misunderstanding.
No, that will not need to be changed because they have asked us to step back 3.50 from the center line of the lane, and we have. But we still do need variance number 2 because in effect what's happened is the main floor is stepped back a great deal, more than 8 meters. So that 574 relates to the second and third floor.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, let's take the application into committee and move move toward a motion, please. Mr. Chang.
Okay, I'll try making a motion to approve the application based on the fact that it's, the applicant have talked to the owner, there was no problem with the expansion, and subject to the engineering report, with the clearance of the, turning radius.
Thank you very much. Second to that motion. Good. Seconded by Mr. Clay.
Oh, sorry. So is it subject to all the development engineering conditions? Is that what Mr. Chang said?
Engineering and construction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you. I missed.
Subject to the engineering and construction staff report, which has two conditions. So, motion before the panel, seconded by Mr. Clay, to approve, subject to staff report by engineering and construction. Those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion is carried with a unanimous vote, and the application is so approved. And the panel moves on to item number 16. '85 Vaughan Road. And on 85 Vaughan, the materials before us are those submitted by the agent, cover letter from the agent, revised cover letter from the agent dated 27 July. There's a previous COA decision from 2008 which affects this property. There's a letter in response to the engineering report from Catherine Cusin, the architect. There are presentation materials submitted by the agent on 27 July. By way of commenting reports, we have one from Transportation Services and another from Engineering and Construction Services. Further, no, that's all. That's all. So, those are the materials. And on this, we'll ask the agent to join us, please, stating your name and address.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. I'm Alexander Hardy of C2 Planning at 7048 Guildhall Court in Mississauga, and we are the land use planner consultants for the owners of the above referenced lands, Dina and Theo Aben.
Thank you.
Would a presentation be needed?
I'd like a presentation on, yes, on the application, please. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead now.
Before the committee is a proposal designed by Katie Cousin of Con Architects, which is shown on page 31 of the slide deck, for the construction of a 2-story rear yard laneway suite that will be 6.3 meters in height and will include 2-car garage and 2 bike parking spaces. The variances sought in this application are related to the built form of the laneway suite, which includes variances for a living unit and an auxiliary structure in the RA residential apartment zone. Engineering and construction services requested an improvement to the proposed rear yard setback in order to allow fire truck and garbage truck access into the laneway, and consultation with city staff resulted in minor alterations, which included an increase of the rear yard setback and including 2 parking spaces for bicycles. As seen in the slide deck in pages 2 to 13, the plan context permits more intensification on the site than what is proposed. In the official plan, the site is designated as apartment neighborhoods. I note that all land uses provided in the neighborhoods designation are also permitted in apartment neighborhoods, which also includes laneway suites. Under the St. Clair Bathurst planning framework, it states that new residential buildings will provide a range of unit types, including for units abutting laneways. It is important to note that section 5.5 of the planning framework encourages animation of the laneways, including dwelling units or housing. The Oakwood Vaughan Urban Design Guidelines in Sub-Area 3.1 allows for the maximum height of 8 stories east of Vaughan Road. Also in the zoning bylaw, it allows heights of up to 8 stories or 24 meters, and permission for all types of residential low-rise and mid-rise development. A density of 1 times is permitted for detached homes in the exception area, with in our proposal seeking a density of 0.8. On page 14, you'll see the existing context with photos from page 15, 16, 17. The site is developed with a 2-story detached building. In the rear is asphalt parking. The northern property to the site is an 11-story block apartment building at 99 Vaughan Road. And to the south at 83 Vaughan Road is a 2.5-story triplex. Also, I'd like to note there's a high-rise proposal immediately east of the site, which is seen on page 33 of the presentation at 10 to 32 Raglan Avenue for 28-story apartment building, which will share the laneway behind the site, the subject site. In regards to the variances requested, please see this on page 20 of the presentation, the site plan. Lane suite standards are in variances 1 and 2. With regards to the angular plane, the variance is triggered as the height of the roof of the laneway suite is 6.3 meters, and half of the width of the laneway suite is less than a 7.5 meter distance from the rear of the main wall of the existing house. The remaining 50% of the laneway suite will be 12.4 meters from the rear of the house. With regard to the width of the laneway suite is proposed to be constructed on the to the north lot line with adequate walkway access along the south lot line. And the proposed width of the laneway suite is sought in order to adequately contain the 2 parking spaces. There are 3 variances related to land use permission. In addressing the variances for living accommodation and accessory building that will include a kitchen and sanitary facility in the RA zone, the laneway suite requires land use permission to facilitate construction as the exception area for every type of low-rise building, allows for every type of low-rise building except laneway suites. And I'd also like to note the Planning Framework 2019 explicitly encourages the creation of dwelling units and laneway suites. Also, I would like to note for variances 6 and 7, which is in regard to setbacks. For rear yard setback, as I mentioned earlier, ECS required that the rear yard laneway be increased from the original proposed 0.5 meters, and we have increased that to the 1 meter rear yard setback. In regards to the side yard setback, if we apply the standards for laneway suites, the 0 meter side yard setback would be permitted in Chapter 150.
I'll ask you to make your summary now, please.
In summary, I'd like to state that, and I could go over the variances individually if there are questions, but I'd like to say that the application from you does meet the 4-part test. As mentioned, it does follow the intent of the bylaw and official plan, and is minor as it permits building of lesser intensity than what is allowed in the permitted context, and it's desirable as it provides additional residential units in a compact built form and will add to the city's missing middle and rental housing stock. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. So we'll now go to questions from the panel, and I'd like to lead off. My concern about the application relates to whether or not this indeed is a laneway house or whether it is actually a house behind a house. So my question to you is the laneway, let's just be careful here. My question to you is does your proposal actually access the City of Toronto laneway?
Yeah, there's no comments from ECS.
I'm asking you to,
It does front into a laneway with, we have also adjusted with the new plans an adequate south lane pathway on the south of the site. And I don't think ECS has commented further on that.
Okay, further questions by panel members? Mr. Clay?
Just to,
Oh, we're going to go Mr. Clay first, then Ms. Valentini, then Mr. Chang.
Sorry, guys. I just touch on variance number 8, which is seeing relief from the height variance. It says here your laneway suite will be 736 meters. I noticed in the drawings it says 6.3. So is the additional height due to railing around the rooftop terrace?
Absolutely correct. So the 7.36 meters is related to the top of the railing. I'll note the parapet height of the proposed building is 6.3 meters, and the top of the functional roof height is 6 meters.
Screening that you have around, or you're proposing to have around the rooftop area, what is that? Is it glass? Is it just glass?
Oh yeah, it'd be a transparent surface.
So it looks like then it is just a meter high? Is that, am I reading that right, feet high?
I can further clarify. Because from the 6.3 meter parapet, so it's approximately 1 meter high from the parapet.
A little lower than we normally require for heating.
Okay. Yeah, we did not receive any staff comment on the guardrail height. For that.
Thanks. I'm done. Thanks.
Okay.
Ms. Valentini?
So I just want to talk about that now. So basically, the height is triggered by the guardrail.
Yes, correct.
The roof, the functional roof is 6.3, you said, which is triggering a variance as well, but
6 meters.
so
the parapet 6.3.
Oh, sorry, the parapet. But it's, and I mean, looking at the variance, it is for an ancillary building at 4 meters, but I understand if we're looking at this as a laneway suite, because the laneway suite bylaw doesn't apply in this area, right? It's an anomaly. It doesn't apply here, even though it's abutting a laneway. Have I understood that correctly?
Yes, the standards in the laneway suite regulations allow for up to 6 meters height.
Allow for up to 6, but in this case, because a laneway suite's not permitted, they've applied, the zoning examiner has applied the height for ancillary buildings like garages, right?
Correct, and also on that note, the exception area is sympathetic to lower intensities in this area and allows for the same land uses as in the R zone, except for laneway suites.
Right. Okay. So I understand that, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is the way when I read the justification and the materials provided to us, when this was designed, the idea was that notwithstanding the fact that a laneway suite's not permitted, I understand you've justified it by saying the official plan does in a way allow for it. Same standards for laneway suites have been applied, generally speaking, when designing this building. Is that correct? Because we see a mix of variances. We see the angular plane variance, which is normally seen in a laneway suite. And then we see other standards, which are just for ancillary structures like garages. So how would this compare to a traditional laneway suite that we normally see? Is this, it's wider, obviously. It's a little taller. Can you give me an idea of how that fits in? I know that's a really open-ended question, but I'm trying to wrap my mind around how this fits in terms of if this was a traditional application for a laneway suite and it was permitted, how does this fit in terms of all the other standards for laneway suites?
I guess one thing is for this zoning designation, it does it's kind of mixing in with the traditional variances that you might see in chapter 150, mainly because we're adding or looking for variances with in regards to the land use in the zoning on this site.
I understand that, but if we were just to apply the Laneway Suite guidelines to this application, like zoning guidelines,
Yes.
how does that fit in with this? Is this an overly, it's wider, I think at 10.99 meters, we don't typically see laneway suites that wide, correct? Under the traditional laneway suite provisions, right? So
Right.
height, it's bigger and it penetrates.
And the reason why it's also wider is also to contain the 2 parking spaces on the ground floor. The zoning examiner, oh, sorry.
Sorry, Lisa, if you're there and you can hear us, you've disconnected slightly, so you're in and out right now. And there you're back. Hi.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, partially, yeah.
There. Without my headphones, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess, let me just ask my last question. I don't see a drawing that shows how much of the building penetrates the angular plane. Can you give me an indication of that, please?
Yep. So, with the angular plane, yeah, I just want to go over that. It would, the variance is triggered as the height of the roof of the laneway suite is 6.3 meters, and half of the width of the laneway suite is less than a 7.5 meter distance from the rear main wall of the existing house. The remaining 50% of the laneway suite will be 12.4 meters from the rear main wall of the existing house. The standards, I guess, are different in this case, as there's a small part of the existing house that it's measured from the rear main wall of the house, but the smaller, most of the house is set back from the proposed laneway suite.
I understand all of that, but how much of that penetrates the angular plane? How much of the structure penetrates the angular plane? Is it just the railing? Is it a large portion, I guess, you know, a large portion of the roof?
Yeah,
Normally we see a diagram that shows the angular plane line. We don't have one of those.
Ms. Valentini,
Yeah?
can you hear me? So I think, well, interestingly, if you look at drawing A500, it's more like a perspective drawing. And you can see how they have this exterior staircase. That is almost like that 45-degree cut plane. So if we are going to look at the zoning bylaw, just imagine there's a plane cutting from that staircase. So the whole second floor will be quite different. Then that will be the case.
Isn't the angular plane measured on the other side? Am I confused now? I thought the angular plane was measured from the back rear wall of the...
From the back rear wall, right. So imagine that staircase is, if you project it to the front.
Oh, I
cut it
see.
horizontally, and that's where it will be. It's almost like a cake being cut on the angle.
So
About
the same
that.
angle as the staircase. Okay.
About that, yeah, that's a 45-degree staircase, so.
Okay. Thank you. Normally we see these drawings, so it would be helpful to have a drawing. Thank you.
Further questions of the applicant panel? Okay then. let's take the application into committee for discussion, and we can move from there toward a motion. So we're now in committee, and perhaps I'll lead off this time, looking for some clarity from my colleagues on this. I'm looking at minor variance number 3. In the RA zone, a laneway suite is not permitted. In this case, the ancillary building is containing a laneway suite. Containing a laneway suite is proposed. Yeah, so my concern is that this is a house behind a house, or it could be construed as one. Does it actually give on to a City of Toronto laneway? Is that a City of Toronto laneway proper? It is, okay, all right. Well, that sort of satisfies my concern then. So that's what I was grappling with. I thought it was a roadway other than a City of Toronto laneway. So now I'm a little better, a little more at ease with it. Other comments, please.
So,
Mr. Chang.
I'll make my comments first. Technically speaking, I think it is not minor, but given the fabric of the surroundings and the density around, I think it is appropriate. So that's what I'm a bit confused myself too. I think it is appropriate, but then technically speaking, by looking at the bylaws that is stated, this zone is not for a, let's put it this way, let's say this is a secondary street with all these requirements, then yeah, that's basically how I'm looking at it. It will be okay, I think, if we treat that more like like 2 lots almost, with the intensity or the density is okay, appropriate to me, but by looking at the bylaws, it doesn't seem to be mine.
Thank you. Other thoughts?
Yeah. So I think that, again, context is everything, and you know, if this was a proposal again that was in a residential area or a high dense single family or semi home, that might be very different. But it is virtually surrounded by apartment buildings and other commercial activities where I don't think, given it's a bit larger than we would normally see, and it does have a rooftop terrace, I don't think in this instance that's a negative on the surrounding area. I think it would easily fit in that area, and the fact that it doesn't have the right zoning, I don't know if that's an anomaly or just a historical fact, but I don't see this as being out of character with its funding. So I think we could support it. I could support it.
Thank you. Ms. Valentini.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to chime in because I can't stop talking. I think I agree with the comments that were made. I think that in my view, this must be some sort of strange anomaly because the official plan policies, as have been pointed out in the presentation, materials that were submitted clearly state that you know, that the animation of the laneways, including dwelling units, are encouraged. So I don't know why the zoning does not match up with that. That to me seems unusual, and I agree with what both colleagues have said, particularly Mr. Clay, in terms of the surrounding context of the there's a lot of high density around here. I was initially, and I think when we look at the variances, because it can't, and I was trying to get that from the agent, but I didn't say in a succinct, clear manner. I think the variances would look less, perhaps, maybe some of them, if the zoning bylaw in terms of the laneway suite provisions applied. I'm thinking, because we have the ancillary building zoning requirements, which are lower 4 meters and things like that. So I think in another situation, I would not be in favor of this, but in this context, I'm in support of this application as well. Initially, I was concerned about the rooftop deck, but I think in looking at the apartment buildings and all the balconies, it's probably not an issue. So long-winded way of saying I support the application.
A very helpful way of saying it. Thank you very much. Okay, are we ready to move on to a motion now? Go ahead, please, Ms. Valentini.
I'll bring a motion forward for approval of the application, and it would be subject to, I believe, their development engineering conditions in their report.
Yes.
And I think the transportation services has been satisfied. Is that correct? There's not transportation conditions?
Correct.
Oh, right, it's in the updated plans. Okay, sorry, so the development engineering conditions then.
Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded by Mr. Chang. So moved and seconded to approve, subject to staff report from Development Engineering, Engineering and Construction. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And it's a unanimous vote. The motion is carried and the application is so approved.
Mr. Chair.
And
Sorry, before we move to the next item, I just need to change over the YouTube hearing.
right. So we do now need to do a technical thing, a very quick changeover, stream changeover, will be about 2 minutes.
For those watching via the YouTube live stream, it's going to end in a second. Just give it a minute or two and then search for Committee of Adjustment Public Hearing, Toronto East York, and you'll see that a new stream is available.